Testing, testing, testing. Testing, 1, 2, testing, 1, 2. Testing, testing, testing. Testing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Testing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hello.
Hello.
How the hell are you?
It's just there's too much news going on.
Getting stressed out.
I don't know, man. It's hot.
It is hot. Hot, hot.
It's just weird.
Hot. I like it hot. Do you like it hot?
Oh, I like it hot. I drop it like it's hot too.
I like your setup tonight. It's a nice
He's-
corner.
He's on time too.
I've completely given up on trying to get the laptop to
Damn
work.
it. It's not as
So,
Oh, this is your phone.
yeah, I didn't even try. Does it look fine?
looks good.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like you
Okay,
got it
yeah.
on a mount or something.
Looks great.
I am utilizing the let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 11 old Xbox One games that I've never gotten rid of as a stack, so it's up high.
Nice. Yeah, it looks like it's mounted. Looks good.
Finally getting used out of all these games.
I was thinking the other day, I was looking at like the 10 DVDs that we have in this house. And I was like, my parents probably had 100. My children will have one. Not even.
Yeah. I have the movies that I really enjoy, I've purchased. So I have, let's see over here. I have Gladiator, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, Shrek, and Shawshank Redemption. Those are the only ones I have on DVD. And actually, that's not true. When Mike Tellman visited us when we were living in our first house, he bought us a bunch of gag gifts when he went to like some local like crap store, and I have the box set of the first season of Ariba.
Reba.
Got right here.
I love Reba.
Did I
Read
have
those
some
good.
5 favorite movies?
That should be.
I
our
actually.
theme
There she-
song. There she is. God, that is one fuck.
Actually, not even the first season, third season.
That's the best one.
Box set.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, you're quiet.
Drinking a Guinness on a 110-degree day. That's a
Yeah,
man's
geez, it's
man
probably
right
hotter for
there.
you guys. I heard you guys have like crazy hot weather.
I ran out of Guinness. I got the Manhattan going today.
I'm drinking a peach shake-up bubbly cocktail.
Oh, that sounds
You
delightful.
gotta
I
give
love a
me
good
shit
peach
for
drink.
drinking that thing in Bloomington.
Well,
How
you
hot is it?
ordered a Bahama Mama.
A
That's
Bahama
little-
Mama.
That's
Hey, it's better than Fuda. Remember Fuda would always buy those hilarious drinks.
no.
You guys don't remember? You guys
I don't
clearly.
remember that either.
No, not when we used to talk. Whenever we go to like coffee places or anything in the morning to get like a drink or go to like
Oh,
Dairy
yeah.
Queen, Fuda would always get like, I'll have the
Super
mocha
sugary,
frappuccino, double
Oh, nice. You know, they
espresso.
are
Like
good though.
you
They
get
are
yeah, you get
good.
the thing that's like a milkshake every single time.
Or to get 3 alcoholic milkshakes from that one place we went to in,
In Nashville,
was that Nashville? Yeah.
yeah,
Just got 3.
you got the
He's
bushwhackers.
like, oh, that's what they ordered. Yes. And at the end, I think he's like, I don't feel good. You drank 3 milkshakes.
Yeah, bushwhackers. I haven't had a bushwhacker probably since that trip.
Where was that at? Where do you get bushwhackers?
It was on Broadway.
Broadway.
They're all over town, but like you can get them on Broadway.
Sam has
How
any
hot is it up
background as
there with you
well?
guys?
It's pretty bad. It's
I
like
think it was
95 with
95. Feels
Yeah.
like
index of
105.
105.
Something,
Wow.
102. I don't know.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean you guys are hotter than us. I went on a walk
Hell
after
yeah,
work,
we
and
are.
it is really hot, but it's like it was like 92, I think.
I like it. I like it hot.
I don't
Sorry,
mind
Mike,
the heat
guys.
either.
Yeah, you were
Right on
real
time.
late. 5 minutes.
That's we docked you 10 house points.
Fuck. What's that put me at? Third?
Yeah, you're third in the running behind Gryffindor and Slytherin.
Wait, who am I? I'm Ravenclaw, right?
I guess I'm giving you Ravenclaw. You could be Hufflepuff if you'd
No,
like.
I mean I probably am, but like that's just a defensive thing to say right off the bat.
Well, hey, I didn't assign you Slytherin.
That's true, but you know, deep down, I feel like I would really belong. I would really thrive. You know, I was thinking. I think I told you guys that last week. I wanted to be. I was thinking about being a criminal.
Oh.
Yeah.
Last week, did you guys meet? Did you guys do a show without me?
Oh yeah, sorry. It's
Oh, sorry,
Symposium 2
Oh,
HD.
I'm getting kicked out.
It's
Now probably
Symposium
got 1,000
HD.
views.
No, of course that. That was. I think. Was that 2 weeks ago? I thought I mentioned that, but if not, I guess I'll let you
don't think
guys
you
know
said
now that I think I'm weighing the options. Maybe I'll be like flip sides. Might be on the criminal side of things. So
What are you thinking? A little like B&E?
breaking in. No. No, nothing illegal. You know,
That's
I
illegal.
would
but you
I would
wanna
be a
a
good
criminal.
guy on the criminal sides of things. You know, doing it right. You know, all these other criminals.
Can you be a criminal without breaking the law?
I don't think so.
It's all about
I'm not
mindset.
sure how that works.
It's all about mindset.
Like,
You
is
could be
it
like,
criminal law.
I watched a documentary on that. What's that guy's name? The guy who created the Silk Road, the digital one for drugs.
He just got pardoned a bit ago.
Yeah, he got pardoned by Trump like a couple months ago. I watched a documentary on him because I didn't know anything about him. What's his name? He had a funny name,
He does have a funny
like
name.
Moss or
It's Ross Albright.
Ross.
Yes,
Ross. There it is,
It's
not
Albright
Moss.
or
Did he
Albright.
just get
I
out
don't
of
know how to
jail?
say it.
I think
Like,
it's
didn't
all-
Trump pardon
Yeah,
him?
Yes.
it was probably about 3
Well,
months ago.
yes. So you could be that sort of criminal
Yeah,
where it's
probably.
like you don't believe that. I mean, maybe it breaks the law of the federal government, but you don't ideologically agree with it.
Exactly.
What if you're doing something that is not against the law at the time, but becomes against the law? Isn't that the best way to be a criminal? Technically, you were a criminal
Ah.
the whole time.
I guess
of the
that's
crimes
true.
First, this is
Yeah.
the first ever crime committed. So
Like witchcraft.
they got to make laws about me.
Witchcraft probably wasn't a crime for a while, and then enough people got warts.
Sam, do you want to try to turn your AirPod volume down slightly?
Oh, am I doing that echo thing again?
Mm-hmm.
It's probably just because I'm deaf, honestly.
It's just Austin. It's not even.
I'll turn
I
the
don't
gain
I
down.
can hear everything.
How's this? Is this better? Hello.
I can still hear it. I don't understand it.
What are you hearing?
Yeah.
An echo.
Like a
weird.
shh, like that
No,
sound?
I can hear whatever. It's like what he says
Oh,
comes
no.
through out his headphones, through his mic, and then back.
I'm not hearing that.
But that didn't happen for me.
Is this
Matt.
better?
Sounds
Only
the
when
same.
Sam
I can kind of hear it too.
Oh, now I can kind of hear. Are you changing things?
Yeah, I was changing the volume of me.
Hmm.
If I do,
Try saying something
What if
now.
I turn this up? Is that louder? Hello, 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 hello.
That's better, I think.
That sounds fun. But yeah,
Okay.
that Ross Ulbricht thing was like really fascinating. Like I'd read about it. I remember him being pardoned, and I was like, I don't really know anything about this guy. So I watched a documentary on it, and it was interesting. Like the guy was definitely breaking the law, and but the way they caught him seemed they had some suspicious evidence, and that might not have been obtained illegally, or there might not have been a precedent for it, which was interesting. Like the U.S. government like found the server that the Silk Road was like being housed under, but they never admitted like how they found the server. So like the people who
Interesting.
are on Ulbricht's side believe that they obtained it illegally from like a foreign government because it probably wasn't a server in the United States. They think that they obtained it illegally, and that's how they were able to shut it down. And so like he was like that. Apparently, that was kind of the reason Trump pardoned him, or at least this is what most people believe why he pardoned him, is because it was a promise that was made um, to the Libertarian Party. Because this guy was like
Oh.
the champion of the Libertarian Party, the Libertarians. Oh, there you go.
What a
He like seriously, he was like a libertarian hero because it was all about like free market and keep the government out of whatever we're doing. Because like the whole Silk Road thing in essence was like you can buy whatever drugs you want, but supposedly they didn't allow other illegal activities, so you couldn't buy like prostitutes, you
People.
couldn't buy you couldn't buy there's no slavery, there was no like child pornography, it was like only drugs. And so, like in their minds, it was like, oh, it's just drugs, so it's really shouldn't be something the government should be worried about. But obviously, that's not how our world works. So he's prosecuted. I
I'm
think he was in jail
cool
for like
with
11
whatever.
years.
You know
That,
what? Oh, go ahead.
well, I know we gotta start the show, so I don't want to get too off track. But that's just an interesting conversation point of, like, I said earlier that I'm thinking about being a criminal, and I mean, do you guys speed on the highway?
Never.
Like,
well,
I
used
feel
to
like
it.
everybody knows that they are a criminal at like
Well,
I
I
some
plead the
have
level.
fifth.
probation for speeding, so
Oh, sorry about that, man.
yeah.
You got put on probation for speeding?
They have like a pre-trial diversion for your first speeding tickets. So if you don't get another one for 6 months, they expunge it.
Do you
I
speed
got a
all the
warning the
time?
last time I did.
I don't notice. Like sometimes I'll look around. I'm like, oh,
Justin,
10
move
over.
your mic a little closer to your mouth.
Yeah, you're a little quiet.
That's better, right?
You look like you're in the Air Force deploying. You're the future of the
Ooh.
Air Force. This
No,
is an
I'm not
advertisement.
a
You're a
B2
B2
stealth
bomber.
pilot.
Yeah, he is the future B2 bomber.
He's the
He's got his
refueling.
controller, and
He's the
gonna go.
refueling boom
I had to
operator.
make
You're
it
going
very
back to
clear. I
Missouri.
did not drop those bombs on Iran. It is not me, even though
What's
you might
this
think
claim?
it is.
Thank you for clarifying that. We're all a little
Yeah,
concerned.
the mic and the headset. 37 hours with this thing on. My hair was, I mean, my hair wasn't flat.
Wait.
So I'm just saying.
Was it flat or wasn't it flat?
I think we should move on.
They had a bathroom and microwave in that plane.
They had a
That was
microwave.
What?
Nice.
I didn't realize how much space there must be inside of those planes.
Wait, has everybody like been inside a B2 bomber that I'm not aware of? Like,
It's
what's
not as
going
flat
on
as you
here?
think it is.
How do you guys know what the inside's like?
3
They've let
stories.
reporters in. I've
Into the
researched it.
bombers?
Yeah,
I remember one flew over Notre Dame Stadium like last year or something. That was pretty
they're
cool.
pretty dope.
They're very
Only, like-
quiet. Like you don't hear them until they're right above you.
That's right. Well, maybe this is a good segue into the show. We're back. Let me start it off for real. 3, 2, 1.
This makes me think of iCarly when you do that.
I always wanted to be Freddy. He was
Oh,
like
man.
my idol. He had all the camera
Freddy was a
gear.
simp.
He
You
got
would
the
make a
hot
great
girls.
Freddy.
Damn, that guy had it.
He was
Anyway,
cool.
3, 2, 1. Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 10. We've made it. We're back. Took 3 weeks off. It was a wild 3 weeks. We've got a lot to get into. Our 10th episode. We're a decade old. So first I just want to go around the horn. Reactions to Symposium episodes 1 through 9. How do you all feel the show is going? We started this back on episode 1 was January 7th, 2025 we recorded. We've done 10 episodes in the first half of the year. What do we think? Sam, give me your thoughts.
Well, we've evolved, I think. We've definitely grown. We've seen some changes in what we talk about, and I think how we talk about it. We've had a live show, which was, I think, a milestone for us. We're coming off the last live episode. So, there's some pretty clear growth that we're seeing both in the podcast itself, but I think with the reception of the podcast too. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on your circles, but it seems like a lot of the people in my circle who are still watching have really reacted positively to it. I think, we had that initial spike off our first couple episodes where people were more interested than anything. A lot of our early feedback was too much AI, your episodes are too long. And those people, I think, mostly stopped watching, but it seems like we've sort of started to find our core group of listeners who I'm proud to have come back over and over again and sort of interact with us. So I think that's been a really fun part of the growth too, is having that interaction with the audience. But I think it's nothing but up, and I'm going all in on Symposium 2025.
Hell yeah. Justin?
Yeah. No, I have to say the first live show I think went a lot better than I thought it was going to. I thought we were gonna have technical difficulties. I thought we were, gonna be not as organized as we are. So I guess, give ourselves a pat on the back for that. But then also the audience coming in there, I think it adds a little flavor to the pod. People getting fact checked live, I thought was hilarious. Or people just bringing up different ideas for us to talk about on the pod. It's kind of like having another or a couple other people, in that circle with us, even though, they're not talking, but they're presenting their ideas. So throwing in a live show, I say we do it more often than once every 9 episodes. Doesn't have to be every week. For instance, this one's not live, but maybe every
I got to
other
interrupt
week,
you there,
but-
just for lawyer's sake. I do believe this one is live. I have third-party confirmation coming in
What?
now that
What?
this episode has been live for 17 minutes. We have at least one viewer. I'm checking the viewer counts now, but sorry to interrupt you there, Justin. Just needed
One of the
to, let you know that this is live, just in case you didn't want to, state to the public that you're a criminal or anything.
Okay, well,
It's not
so
actually
change the
live, is
vibe of the actual. Are we on
It is,
YouTube?
and I think we're doing great. Let us know in the let us know in the chat if we're doing a great job.
I mean,
Pretty funny.
well, I'll take it back. We can do live whenever we want to. We don't need to be on a schedule. It might even be without us
How
knowing.
are we live?
So,
What are we live on?
yeah.
Blue Sky?
We're live on YouTube. What?
I love it. I'm trying to log. Like, how do you even open up the chat? Because I'm trying to see if anybody's watching. Can you
How
drop
does
the
Well, I
link
didn't.
to it?
If we're gonna go live, I would have put
Well,
out
we
some
didn't
more
promote it.
messages for people to come on
This
if they
is
want.
Grace-
how we'll know
so,
who our
I know
true
because
followers are.
I was running late, and Grace got a notification on her phone. She was like, "Oh, Symposium's live tonight," and I was
Wait,
like,
Sam,
"Well, I
did
don't
you
think
do
so."
this?
No,
Or did...
no,
okay,
I was
so
upstairs.
Awesome. I wonder if
I
it's a
think
running.
Riverside did it
Yeah,
automatically.
it's just automatic.
Okay.
So I sprinted down here like, "Oh shit, I didn't know we were doing a live show."
Oh God.
I thought you were just dropping the surprise. I was like, hey, I turned live on.
I know.
I didn't realize you weren't aware.
Yeah, I thought this was Sam. I was like, okay, well, I guess we'll do it
Should I
live.
turn it off?
I don't know.
I don't care either way.
If, let's
I
see.
don't know
Let's see
how.
who shows up. We don't have to. We could take
I
it down.
logged in. I don't even know how to look at that now. Let's see. But
Wow.
Should we
All
should we
right.
do a vote if we want to stay live or not? Just because.
There goes all of our hot takes on Israel and Iran.
can't be edited out now.
Yeah.
It's real. We're the real. This is the real party. That's our whole
so
thing.
confused.
Oh yeah,
Say
the real
Rivers-
party.
Yeah,
What the
I got to
hell?
keep bringing that back.
It's probably just
Because in that
a
scenario, I
cache
think
setting.
I'm the ruler. Well, Austin, let's just get started. I say we leave it. You guys good with that?
Let's just keep
I
rolling.
don't care either way.
Cool.
Someone's gotta have the chat up though. If someone does comment in the chat.
Yeah, Grace H says, "Good job, all. You are indeed live on YouTube." great. So we've got one viewer. Oh, no, now it's
Perfect.
2, but I think that's me. So
I'm also viewing.
I think Grace is just watching live.
I'm
She's just
gonna
upstairs, so no pressure.
Okay.
So we've got one whole viewer.
Well, who did we leave off on getting thoughts?
going
Did
to
everyone
Matt.
give their
Matt,
thoughts?
what do you think about the first
Yeah, I
10
never gave
episodes?
mine. I think we've enlightened the population. I think this is a game changer. I'm not sure if there's ever been a podcast this revolutionary. Um, I don't know. I think it's going well. I think I've enjoyed myself. We originally just like started this whole thing just talking to each other in general on calls like every what like couple months, and then we realized that we like talking to each other more than that, and so like Austin one day was just like, "Hey, these are actually pretty good conversations. Let's turn this into a podcast." And I was like, "If you want to do all that, go for it." And I think it's been a pretty good success. I think most of the time we hit good topics. We're not just always like rambling on about nonsense. I agree. We've gotten a lot of good feedback. We definitely fall back on the AI conversation a lot. I understand that, and I am here to hear that conversation and to push back on it sometimes. So I would agree with we probably need to tamper that down. Um, but
Hey,
I think
did you see
overall.
that chart I just texted?
Was
Replete
that
with
you
Speaking
sent
of
that
stars.
chart? What
AI,
was that chart? The ARR one?
Yeah.
I didn't see. There was no X and Y axis from what I could tell, so I didn't know what it was for.
It was, yes, there was. It was time and revenue dollars to the
Okay, maybe I
moon.
just looked at it too
So,
quickly.
what else do we talk about? Because AI is all there is.
Are we going
Um,
back to the moon?
we're going, well, I don't know,
Careful,
because
don't want to
that's a
ramble.
whole nother thing, because Trump's cutting the NASA budget. Um, all right. Well, I'm glad you're all enjoying the show. We'll keep doing another 10 episodes, I suppose. I think our goal for the year is probably to get to 20 episodes. Seems like reasonable. We have to
Sure.
double where we are now, halfway through. Um, I set my some 2025 personal focus areas, I called them, here at the beginning of 2025. And number 3 was get my voice back. Very dramatic. And I put in
love it.
parentheses Symposium. I don't know that I lost my voice, but I felt like I had things to say, and I wanted a place to say them. And that's what we've made here. And I haven't been canceled yet. And nobody who I wouldn't want to hear my these thoughts has caught on that these thoughts are out there. So if you're listening to this,
Your employer has not started listening yet. Good to know. Screaming from the
um,
mountaintops.
all right. Well, I hope I hope the fans have enjoyed the first 10 episodes. We'll get into this one. We've got all sorts of good topics to hit on. First, we need to do a little bit of recap on what's happened in the last 3 weeks. I just wanted to start. I spent a week vacationing in Alaska. We did an Alaskan cruise. I'll say we were in the younger side of the population on the cruise ship, as you can imagine. But it was a really nice way to see Alaska. Saw all sorts of cool little towns and a lot of um, a lot of glaciers. We took a helicopter ride and landed on top of a glacier. That was
Wow.
pretty
Oh,
cool. Um, and then we took a train. We were in this town called Skagway, and it was a place where the gold rush kind of was. They started, and then they built these train tracks up through the mountains to get to where the gold was. And so we took this train up there, and I just couldn't help but think, and I think I sent you guys this, but for the audience, I couldn't help but think, reminiscing on the the treacherous journey that people made to go find gold back in the 1800s. Left everything, left their families behind, went. Many of them died chasing after this thing called gold that could turn people into riches or to give people riches. And I couldn't help but think how we are lucky enough to be living in the modern day gold rush of AI. And it just made me
I knew
so
you were gonna
happy
say that.
that,
Does that mean is this why Victoria has to now be concerned that you're gonna leave her and move out to Silicon Valley?
hey, don't put it past me. The lucky thing is for us, we can do this gold rush from right here at our desk on our laptops, and it's just it is incredible. So, really saw a lot of parallels there, and I think that that's why we're so focused on AI. We got to chase that gold. So anyway, great trip to Alaska. Would highly recommend people go check it out. Very scenic land out there, and just a cool part of the country to go see.
What was the highlight?
Highlight
Helicopter ride?
probably the helicopter ride. It was very cool. The train ride was really cool too. You started at sea level. You go up 3,000 feet, right on the side of the cliff of a mountain.
Did your ears pop?
Yeah, they did. But the helicopter was really
What part of the, I bet, what part of the state were you on? Like the southern portion, the northern portion, the
We were
west?
on the western side, so we started in Anchorage and then we finished in Vancouver. That's in Canada.
Oh,
So I
nice.
had to go into
Yes.
Canada for a little bit, unfortunately. The 51st state,
Unfortunately.
people are calling it.
Future,
What's wrong with
future.
Vancouver?
Um, we did the first thing in Vancouver. Our bus had to stop because we were making way for a Palestine protest. Welcome to Canada.
Interesting. Did you watch?
No, I closed my eyes.
Did you participate?
So that was my time off. You guys get up to anything interesting?
Mm,
Shot my worst round of golf in a long time. Got
Okay.
pretty low.
Mm. Well, it's the midsummer blues.
Thought
It's
about
finally summer. The
yeah, it
summer
is finally
solstice has
summer.
passed
Thought
us.
about
The days
quitting,
are getting
golf
shorter.
in general.
I
But,
heard you got it
we're
back
back.
though.
We're back. We had a good range session.
Oh, you're back. Okay.
So,
Big round tomorrow night.
those
No?
3 weeks I've also given up chess. I used to play a lot of chess.
Wow.
I will not play any more chess.
Wow.
too
Later
many losing rounds or something?
Chess is a game where you can have a great game. You make one wrong move and it all comes crashing down on your head, and I don't need that sort of stress in my life. You know, let's
That's
stay on
interesting.
stay on the path and not have to worry about that stressor. At least off my phone. It was just too much time, and
That's
then
really interesting.
I don't know. So those are the two biggest moments of my week.
Okay. Okay. Well, speaking of one wrong move did not happen when Donald Trump orchestrated a beautiful strike onto the Iranian nuclear sites. That, of course, is the big news from the week. So, what was it,
Heck of a
Saturday?
segue.
That was a hell of a segue. What was it? I guess Friday night from the middle of the country. Where was that at? I don't know.
Missouri.
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 B-2 bombers take off. A few of them go west over California. Diversion, it turns out. The other ones go east. They fly for 18 hours nonstop, straight to Iran.
That was 37.
Round trip.
Oh, gotcha.
They deploy the never-before-used, most powerful missile, I guess, bomb. That's not a nuclear weapon. Called the Bunker Buster. It hits the nuclear sites, which are buried 300 feet into a mountainside, burrows its way down, and explodes, dismantling a few of Iran's most developed nuclear sites. We find out about this Saturday. I actually got a notification about an earthquake in Iran before we learned about what actually had happened.
I thought this was after.
Was this TMZ reporting this?
No.
No, I
It
heard the
said
earthquake thing
earthquake.
too. This was after the Israeli bombings into Iran. It was like the next day after, I thought.
What
I didn't
Israeli
realize.
bombings?
Huh?
We dropped the bombs.
Israel bombed
first ones,
Iran
before-
to start the bombing.
Oh, to
Before
start
the
it
US.
off. I
Yes,
see.
and then they released that. I didn't hear it wasn't an earthquake. Thought I heard there was an earthquake
There
in
was actually an
Iran.
earthquake?
That's what I heard. I didn't
Well, that's
realize it
interesting
wasn't.
timing.
I heard it was after. This was like the day after. I mean, I'm on my phone, so if someone else wants to like type this in real quick, maybe it was related to the U.S. bombing, but I heard there was actually an earthquake.
You know what you can use your laptop for, Matt? Is have it next to you.
Mm.
So you can still use your laptop on the pod.
You don't see my setup right now. It'd be a little difficult.
Yeah, you don't have
Well,
enough
at any rate,
Xbox CDs.
the intelligence that came out from the U.S. side was that it was massively successful. Everyone's been getting their flowers for a successful mission. Pilots fly home, complete the 37-hour round trip in the B-2s. Like I mentioned earlier, they had bathrooms and microwaves. Pretty cool. I did some research. There's only like 19 B-2 bombers. There were 21 that were built. 2 of them are no longer in service. There's only about 500 people, I think, that are able to pilot the aircraft or have ever been able to pilot the aircraft. Thoughts? Where do we stand? Are we happy, mad? What are the reactions?
Yeah, I have just a question about the bombers. Now that you've just brought that up, that you were looking into it. Do they fly super low so that they don't get picked up on radars? Do they fly super high if they don't get picked up on radars or go so fast? Like, how do they get away with not being spotted?
From my understanding, it's the
Anybody have no
material
idea?
and the shape of the aircraft allow it to radar again. I don't know how accurate this is, but on radar, B2 looks like a bird.
You're
So
on it.
you can be like, oh, that's not a plane. Granted, another comment about that was, oh, this bird is traveling at 600 miles an hour. So I guess you could, in theory, maybe figure out something's up there, but you don't know exactly what. But yeah,
Yeah.
it is the material and the shape allow it to be very small
Yeah,
on radar.
you almost you nailed it. The shape, the material, radar absorbent materials. It's called the engine concealment, and then tactics and flight paths. They fly at high altitudes, use carefully planned routes to avoid known radar sites.
Hmm. I wonder if the U.S. coordinates that with any of like the European Union, if they're gonna fly over that region at all. Like, hey, just so you know, we're gonna be in your area, but I
I
don't know.
wonder what
They would never release that
airspace
information to us.
they crossed. Because, yeah, that's kind of interesting. I mean, you're probably
They might have.
well, Syrian, Iraqi, so those 2 countries you don't have to tell. And then north of Israel is
Lebanon.
Lebanon. Probably flew over there. Also, country, I guess. You might not
That's
have to
pretty. They're
tell.
both pretty small.
Israel, you probably did tell. And then I don't know who controls like the Mediterranean. Like those technically owned?
Turkey,
Do you
maybe.
have to coordinate with those countries, or do you just?
I
I feel
don't
like you
know.
tell as few as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. My guess is they probably don't tell much, but
Cyprus
though
probably flew over.
Greece,
Those people are
maybe. Who
pissed.
knows?
What are those?
Yeah, I don't know. That's all just in. We'll never know. They would never let us know if they are where they were, how they coordinated their attack. But that's just an interesting thing about.
30,000-pound bombs.
Insane.
B
So
Where do you
does that
two.
mean,
suppose?
is that
$500
a
million?
metric?
30,000.
Is that a metric of explosive power, or does it weigh
No,
30
that was weight.
weight? So it's like, yeah,
So,
very big.
B2s Red were specifically the only aircraft that could carry these munitions. So
Where do you suppose that they test out these bunker busters?
probably in the
Nevada.
Great question.
Nevada desert. The
You
government
think?
owns most of Nevada land.
We have our own entire Iran in the west of the United States. Like, it's pretty much the same terrain.
You're just saying desert.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we got some desert out there. It's like Iran.
I guess we do have a lot of space out there.
I feel like even the
Nukes
parts that
for
aren't
testing.
desertish, they're like the mountainous regions that have like plants. They're still like rocky. Like I just, honestly, I've never been to Iran, so please, if you're listening, let me know if I'm just talking out of my ass. But I feel like Nevada is exactly like Iran.
I would love for an Iranian to come on the pod and
Yeah.
talk about this.
How open were our borders with Iran? Like were U.S. citizens able to go to Iran within the last decade pretty easily? That I have no
I
clue
bet
about.
you could have, but it would have been probably going to like Russia in the 60s. Like
Yeah.
a bad idea.
Like they're definitely on the list of like don't go there, but I don't know if they could prevent us from going
Oh,
there.
that's a different thing. Maybe not in this pod, but the Trump travel ban order, that was reminiscent of 2016 or his first term. He had a couple countries where he travel banned. That was kind of.
Oh yeah, I forgot about those.
Yeah.
Remember that?
I-
That was Trump 1.
I had I know somebody from Afghanistan who reached out to me after he did that the travel ban. I didn't get to have a in-depth conversation with them, but yeah, kind of crazy thinking about some of the oppression happening in these terrible countries. I don't want to call them terrible countries because I feel like some of the systems in place are terrible, but honestly, if I turn that lens around on the United States, I feel like I could claim that we're a terrible country in some ways. So it's really just how it's presented to you and the people who are actually struggling underneath those systems. It's tough to see things like a travel ban occur and then think of the humanitarian side of things, like the impact that it's having on real people, real families that live there. I think that's where a lot of social issues come into play pretty much across the political spectrum. And it's a tough one that you either look at it and like prioritize that number one, or something else is prioritized, like safety. So I think as far as the Iran operation goes, I'm feeling like that is kind of impressive that we flew 36 hours nonstop, and executed this, potentially very successful mission pretty flawlessly. Feels like a very strong show of force, which gives me some security in this sort of destabilized world order that we have going on right now, where there's wars going on that are lasting longer than I expected, like Ukraine versus all of Russia. Multiple years now, Palestine versus Israel, like these very powerful countries sort of like dragged into these long drawn out wars. And we failed in Afghanistan just 2 years ago. Like all of these strong countries are in these sort of unsuccessful war positions. So to have the United States execute something in a powerful show, to me, made me feel more secure as a nation. But also thinking of the destabilization, and then are we just getting drawn into another big war against Iran that we aren't going to be able to execute on, and we're just going to be like another 6 year long war where all these people are suffering and like
Have you
nothing's
seen
actually
the
getting
news?
accomplished. What's in the news?
Like literally within an hour, ceasefire
I
has
did not
been
see that.
will be starting with Israel and Iran.
I just
So
saw that before you texted it, like what, like
literally,
20
Wow.
yeah,
minutes
it
ago.
was about 5 minutes before
But
the
I
pod.
I did
Oh,
see that
Caroline
Trump.
Levitt.
I saw Trump tweeted that, but neither of their governments had released anything yet.
Hey, Caroline Levitt says it, so it must be true.
Oh
In
yeah,
48
totally.
hours, in
If she
48
says
hours,
it, it's
President
gotta be
Trump
fact.
directed one of the most secret and successful military strikes in history, obliterated Iran's nuclear program, successfully brokered a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, effectively ending the 12-day war. All of this was only possible because of President Trump's courage, strong leadership, and steadfast
Most humble guy I know.
preserve.
The most humble guy
I
I
don't know
know.
if that's a word.
If that doesn't
that's-
sound like so authoritarian, I don't know what does. Like patting yourself on the back for a bombing that you did, and then saying, "Oh look, I brokered peace by blowing their things up."
Well,
Like
at least
that's
he
kind of
should have been
ridiculous.
shouting out the military there. Like, I
It
don't know, that
worked.
statement, you gotta give some props out to gain my respect. But you go me. It's just like, come on, dude,
Yeah.
do a little bit of.
Thank you for your
Humility?
attention to this matter.
That cracked me up. That was how he signed off his tweet announcing the successful mission. It was like, we just bombed Iran. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Bang.
Pretty funny.
Awesome.
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the issue, honestly. Like, I don't like the idea that we have to go in there and start bombing their nuclear sites, considering Israel was already bombing them. Like, I just don't want to get the U.S. involved in a war, and I understand that they said there's a ceasefire. Ceasefire does not mean that a war is not happening. Ukraine and Russia totally said they were ceasefiring multiple times in their war,
Yeah.
and that is still going on. So I'm
Israel
not
and
gonna.
Palestine too.
Yeah, like it's constantly going on. So I'm
much-
not gonna say.
How much do you think Trump and a lot of these countries announce things to try and force hands? Like, hey, we just came to an agreement, and then forces like their own citizens to be in support of this supposed agreement, and like forces them to come to the table when in fact there was no agreement in the first place. I wonder if there's some of that kind of political game
For
being played on the global
this?
stage.
I
don't
can
know
see
about for
some of
this,
that.
but
I think a lot of this is calculated. I mean, he said a couple days before that he'll make a decision within 2 weeks, like he did a delay on if he was going to bomb or not. He was like,
I thought that
making
was
two-
crazy, but it makes
yeah,
sense in
I was going to
retrospect.
text you guys and be like, oh my God, like we're just delaying everything. And then
Yeah,
it was
taco.
all part of the plan.
But
Sorry.
kind of what I was saying, I'm not even like fully against it. Like if they were enriching uranium and trying to build a nuclear bomb, and it actually had a potential of them having a nuke. I don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons. I don't, particularly a theocracy that's running and whose their leadership has maintained multiple times that they want to basically destroy Israel. So, and that's like their neighbor. So, I don't like the idea of them having a nuclear weapon. So, I understand us wanting that not to happen. I would like to understand, like, supposedly there was like nuclear conversations with Iran going on with the U.S. that Trump said he was involved in. They were trying to come to a place where I was reading up on it. They were saying that they send in like a third party or like this nuclear watchdog essentially that like ensures that they're not using their uranium for nuclear weapons. They're using it more for like energy and like they're being watchful about it supposedly. Um, and who knows? Maybe those talks just completely broke down, or they broke some rule, and then the U.S. decided, well, this is our best course of action because they're not following. I haven't seen any reporting on that that proves that they've broken that agreement, but um, I just don't like the idea of us having to go in there when it's all the way across the world and Israel was already bombing them, and it seemed like they were pretty effective in doing so. So I was a little surprised when I saw that we were sending in. Yeah.
At the same time, we are Iran's like stated number one enemy, and like isn't it us that needs to be destroyed?
Well, I think Israel's our number one
Israel's
enemy.
probably number
Is
one on
Israel?
there. Yeah.
They do not
What
get along.
what's their MySpace page? I want to see where they've ranked the United States on their enemies list.
Fortunately, that went over my head, Sam. That was right after me.
I actually never had a MySpace.
Don't know what you're talking
I feel like they had enemies boards though.
Um, I, to counter Matthew's point, well, not counter, but I'm more in favor of it because if you guys kind of remember, I don't know when, maybe that was a month or two ago when Pakistan and
India.
India got at it. That was a little scarier to me because you had two nations that do have a nuclear arsenal, and you're just like, if one side oversteps, like that dance is a lot scarier than a dance between a nuclear power and a non-nuclear power. So, I mean, the the regime doesn't exactly have a lot of leeway in my eyes, right? They had some nasty crackdowns in 2020 where they killed their own people who were rising up, for change and stuff like that. So I'm not going to be sympathetic to the Iranian government. So I'm going to lean towards they were um, dragging the U.S. along, or I'm butchering that, but kind of stalling the process to make progress in their nuclear regime. And I think the United States finally had enough and said, "All right, you know what?" I mean, Trump said it again. I don't take everything Trump says as truth all the time, but like, I wanted to make a deal, and they didn't make the deal. So I guess if we have to take, I don't know if we'll ever know the truth. I mean, that's the kind of thing about the government. We'll never know the full story, and we just kind of have to take our people's words for it. But I'm of the opinion that I'm okay with it. I think that to Sam's point, the fact that we were able to fly across the world and then bomb a country and then come back. Again, I don't think they're a adversary that we were necessarily ever afraid of. I think modern warfare is going to be way different. Like if a modern country actually wanted to fight, it would be hacking, it would be destroying electrical grids. I mean, that would be your real like modern country. I think we're bombing a backward like a backwater country, right? So it's not as impressive, but it's pretty insane that the whole operation itself is it's kind of mind-boggling that that's we're able to do that.
So, what role does physical warfare play in a cyber world? Is it still important to have physical power like the
I
B-2
don't
bombers?
know. It's kind of this interesting because you'd almost
Oh yeah.
you take out the infrastructure, but I mean physical, yes, but at the same time, physical is really good for invasions. But at what point would like U.S. and China? At what point would you actually invade? Right? You would kind of just want to destabilize those countries, like each other internally, and then you take the United States without electricity for 2-3 weeks, I don't want to be in this country with that. That's stuff could start breaking down. You might see some nasty stuff going on. So I don't know. It's a
There's a
good
good movie
question, man.
called Zero Day about that on Netflix.
I don't know. I'm not worried about like full on colonialism or like a massive war with another huge nation. Like no one's trying to invade anybody in that sense. Like obviously Russia's in a war with Ukraine right now.
Yeah.
That's a
So
little
you look over
different.
there,
But
though. It's like
to
that's what the question
them,
is.
yes, that makes sense. For the United States, I'm not necessarily concerned. But I mean, with the war going on in Russia and Ukraine, obviously physical warfare is very important. But I back to what you were saying earlier. I think I pretty much align with honestly what you were saying, Justin. Like if it's true that like talks really broke down and Iran was getting close to a nuclear weapon, I don't really have a problem with the US going in there and putting an end to it. Like it seemed like it was their way of showing force of like, hey, just so you remember, like we are the dominant military power in the world, and this is something that we can do. Um, and I think they're definitely trying to push towards regime change. Like if Iran was not a theocracy and it was a democracy, I don't think people would really care about them having a nuclear weapon because we have other nations with nuclear weapons. Like you said, India and Pakistan. That's why I honestly wasn't as too concerned because they had elected leaders. It just concerns me that Iran would have one, and so I think we honestly align with like how we feel about it. I just felt like Israel maybe could have done something similar, and we wouldn't have to get involved. But if it truly leads to a ceasefire and this doesn't lead to more escalation, then I guess it was okay in the end. Like obviously, to what Sam was saying, the human aspect of it, it's always sad, but that I don't know, it's a reality with war. Obviously, like people unfortunately get caught in that, and it's terrible. But that's just a reality of a regime like that oppresses their people.
So I have a question, I guess, then, as far as who should be allowed to have nukes, because the fear or what's been keeping the peace for so long is mutually assured destruction, right? But if you're bombing somebody who doesn't have nuclear weapons, then there isn't a mutually assured destruction situation because if you bomb them, they won't be able to nuke you back, right? So would a potential solution to a lot of war be to like open source nuclear weapons? Like everybody gets a nuclear weapon?
No, you
Well,
have to earn.
go ahead,
That's why
Austin.
there's. That is the. That is what the negotiation was actually. That's what we've been trying to do with Iran for a long time, with these negotiations. You have to earn your way into getting a nuke. You have to deserve it. So you have to meet these thresholds. You have to treat your people right. You like what we get the because we're the dominant power. We get to sort of determine what the rules on the playing field are for what gets you to earn that nuke. But ultimately, you have to show your good behavior. You have to earn your way into that. And sure, maybe that's not, I mean, it's not fair, but like life isn't fair. We get to call the shots. But we are willing to negotiate and allow countries to make those steps toward development if they prove to us that they will be an honest broker and a good partner in on the world stage. And Iran was not doing that, and so they've lost their opportunity for the last 20 years or whatever, like since they've been trying to do it, and now they've really played their cards wrong because
Back
now
to
supposedly
square
they've
one.
lost all their progress.
Well, it's kind of like what we talked about in the past. Remember how I said it's silly, like in economics, they use um, they always go under the presumption that everyone's a rational actor, and that's how everything works. Is
Yeah.
like as long as everyone's a rational actor, it works. That's the biggest problem with mutually assured destruction. It works when everyone's a rational actor and they don't want to ruin like the world. But because like once one nuke goes off, it's probably the end of humanity. It doesn't work when you have extremists that run a regime in a nation. That's why it hasn't worked with Iran. There's extremism that runs within their nation and their government that's in control currently. Not saying the people are all like that. I'm sure they aren't. But when your government is an extremist theocracy, it's kind of dangerous to put we don't when we, like what Austin said, when we can kind of dictate who gets and who doesn't get it, that's not going to be a country that we're going to allow nuclear weapons.
Thank you for making an appearance on the show, Will.
There you go. The people wanted more of that cat. Now they got all of it. All right. Well,
Wait,
shall
interesting
So where do
interesting
you-
point that I just learned. Sorry to, but the nuclear weapon states, which is what is from the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which allows you to earn the right to have a nuke, permanently closed its doors in 1967. If you were not one of the nuclear weapon states as of 1967, you are permanently banned from acquiring nuclear weapons. So, is that right? That like we're basically saying nobody is allowed to have them after this date?
I think North
I-
Korea.
I don't know about.
Chat says there is no upgrade path, no application, no standards you can meet to gain the right. The system is explicitly discriminatory by design. That seems wrong to me.
Yeah, I think it's kind of more like what terms we dictate, like what Austin was saying. I like I said, there's some watchdog, some nuclear watchdog. I'm not sure what the organization's name is.
NEIA.
Something like that. But yeah, there's a nuclear watchdog that basically goes into each of these countries and ensures that who knows exactly what they're looking at. I'm sure there's some sort of oversight that we're supposed to be able to see what they can look into, but they're supposed to be the watchdog to make sure that no one's like abusing their nuclear weapons and like there's not proliferating their weapons.
Yeah,
The IAEA, International Atomic Energy.
I think Sam, that's more of
Yeah.
a. I don't know. I don't even know what you call that 'cause it's not really pressed. It's not. It's not forced because Pakistan got their. I'm looking this up right now. Pakistan got theirs in 1998. North Korea, I am guessing it was after 67.
It was 2006 for North Korea.
So
Well, Israel has nukes.
Israel's got theirs.
Never confirmed first test. Widely believed to assess between 80 and 90 warheads. They're secretive about their nukes.
Who
North
is
Korea?
Israel?
No, that's Israel.
Oh.
Yeah, Israel's like the big.
Interesting.
That's to the point of what Austin said about how we kind of determine who gets nukes. Like
We
we're like,
gave
oh,
Israel
cool,
nukes.
Israel's our ally, so you can have nukes.
Yeah.
But it's not very apparent to
Okay.
everybody on if they pass the rules of should they have a nuke or not.
That's interesting. I feel like this is
Yeah.
important context for people to have as they're learning about,
Mhm.
you know, because now everybody's, okay, we just banned the nuclear sites in Iran, like for building a nuclear bomb. What's a nuclear bomb? And like, who has nuclear bombs? So I think these are questions that people are asking, or at least should be aware of. Like, I didn't even know until Austin, you said that they were like trying to earn the right. I had no idea that people were allowed to earn the right. I just thought it was like a secret that was somehow kept, and they just didn't know how to do it yet.
Well, it kind of
I don't
is.
think that's a
That's kind of how it works. It's kind of like, oh, the U.S. just keeps tabs on everybody because they're kind of also just like
You
a
can't really
watchdog of the
keep a
whole
secret.
world. Yeah, the U.S. is just always keeping tabs. That's how they found out that Iran's like enriching uranium, right? Like they kind of try to keep tabs on who's has access to uranium and like how it's being transported, and then they always have spy planes and satellites that are like checking in on these military sites to see if they find it, and then I'm sure, approach these governments and say, "Hey, do you have nuclear weapons or do you have uranium that you're trying to enrich or something?" And they deny it. They're like, "Well, here's our proof," and then
Hand them
it
the manila
escalates.
envelope.
Yeah,
see-
and then they
They
drop
see
a
a
then
picture
leads-
buster on them.
yeah, and then it leads to where we are.
Right. It's a picture of their nuclear site. A picture of the government leader with a mistress. Whatever else we've
Yeah,
got.
you've got
on
all
them.
kinds of leverage you could pull before you had to pull out the big nuke card. But I want to ask you guys then, back to the question that I had. Is it right to not allow people to get nuclear weapons? Because then it puts you in this position where it's not mutually assured destruction. And then you're able to have power disparities, which if you're a good country or a bad country, you can put your thumb on a lot of these countries pretty heavily because at the end of the day you've got the ultimate card and that they don't. So they pretty much have to. It feels like a means to slavery, really. At the end of the day, is to force other countries to do your bidding, whether or not they like it, because they don't have nukes and you do. So I think that leads to a lot of wars, a lot of oppression and pain. So I'm wondering if like the real problem is that Iran doesn't have nukes, and that maybe they should have nukes, and that not only them but everybody should, and then you wouldn't have or would you have a prisoner's dilemma then? I
You're
don't know.
kind
It's
of,
just an
you know
interesting
what you're
question.
describing right now? You're describing the Cold War. Like everything you
But
just
global.
described is ba- I mean, the Cold War was global. Like that was the Cold War. Was
So explain to me the
essentially.
Cold War as if I wasn't really sure about all about it.
We're not gonna dive into the Cold War.
Well, the Cold War post 1945, United States wanted
We're
their
getting
influence to
close.
spread, and just simple terms. And Russia wanted their influence to spread, and they fought a lot of proxy wars by supporting other nations, not putting our own boots on the ground. So, like in South Korea, North Korea, right? It was just Korea at the time, and the U.S. supported South Korea. Russia supported North Korea. They ended up splitting, essentially trying to spread their own ideologies. Like Russia was trying to, or the Soviet Union was trying to expand communism. The United States is trying to expand democracy because they believed if democracy spreads, you don't have to worry about nuclear weapons and you don't have to worry about as many enemies because everyone's going to think the same way as us, right?
Hmm.
That was kind of the concept. And so what you were describing right there was kind of that is like, oh, if we have more people of like minds, then nuclear weapons, it's okay if you have them because mutual assured destruction, everyone will act rationally. No one will ever use their nukes. That was like kind of the whole idea. But now with nukes, I think the general stance by the United States is status quo. Like, let's
Let's not
not,
spread it.
yeah, let's not spread it. For a long time, I think Obama tried to do a denuclearization pact of some sort. They were trying to get countries to agree to reduce their arsenals, essentially. I'm not sure how effective that really was because they have to like get Russia and China to do it, which, who knows how successful that really is. They're not going to admit openly how many nukes each of them have. Um, so I think they kind of just like we don't want anybody else to get nukes at this point. And if you're like let's look at it from the lens of like our biggest adversaries, Russia and China. I don't think they particularly care about the nations in the Middle East like acquiring nuclear weapons unless they're being actively oppressed by the democratic nations around. So if the
Right.
US was like, we're going to invade Iran, then Russia, who's their ally, would be like, no, like you're not doing that. But I don't think they particularly care if we're just like saying you can't have them because we're not actively trying to like change their way. We're not doing what we did in Afghanistan or Iraq, where like, we're actually setting boots on the ground and trying to like regime change like what they did during the Cold War as well. We're kind of just like you guys continue to live your lifestyle, but we don't want you to have
Yeah,
nukes.
we've had this rule for a long time. You're crossing the line, and we're gonna stand against that line every day, but we're not trying to do anything more than that. At least I think that's how the U.S. is posturing right now, and I hope that that's doesn't devolve. And I think some of that comes from Iran and from the Middle East to not as people are concerned about destabilizing the region because I think one wrong button sort of comes back to what we were saying earlier about feeling like Justin when you said with chess, I'm sick and tired of feeling like I make one bad move and the whole fucking thing's over. Like I think that's what we're coming down to is like, okay, nobody put yourself into a situation where this just snowballs out of control.
Granted, if you want to put on a little tinfoil here, this whole situation has been a nice base for a Bush-like escalation. For whatever reason, let's say there is an attack on the United States, mall bombing or like some just small
Iran does have a
event.
lot of oil.
You can see. I don't know if we would need to go for oil. USA is pretty good on oil now. But it does provide the basis for all right. Oh, we have to go in here because of X. Like I don't again, I don't fully believe that. I don't want to believe that. But before this conflict, you didn't really have something like that, right? No one was really, oh, these are the boogeymen and they could do something bad for us. Now there are a lot of people that are like, oh, Iran's going to have sleeper cells and they're going to do something
Right.
now. Like, hopefully not. I don't think this was the reason. I hope it was all rational.
I don't think so. I think it was.
Yeah.
I would. I If you look at Trump's history, one thing he's been very consistent on was the that invading Iraq was a bad idea. He's been outspokenly against that decision for like consistently
That's fair. Yeah.
forever. Um, and I don't think that I really don't think that he wants to get into anything more than what this was. That's just my opinion. But
I will say people can be corrupted. So, if he's living his whole life feeling like it was a bad decision, if for some reason there's an ulterior motive for doing it and that presses on you, I think even, President of the United States can be corrupted into doing something, that they morally up to that
You
point.
only get a third term through an
or
emergency.
Yeah.
Is how I would say he gets a third term. But yeah, I don't think he's doing. I really.
I'll make an
1%
argument, though,
chance.
that
he saw a good deal. Like someone presented him a good deal and said, "This is a win."
it's oil. It's
Right.
oil. I'm going to come back to my core stance on this show that it's money and it's inflation that's the problem. We are headed into, Austin, the biggest AI boom that the universe will ever see in all of history, which is going to require a crazy amount of energy. We need energy. Energy is represented in dollars, and the dollar represents oil. The dollar is basically oil. That's what the dollar is based in. And I think we're going to Iran because Iran has oil.
I don't think so.
I have a simpler explanation in my mind. We know Donald Trump is he likes to flex his muscles and he likes to show off. The guy literally held a military parade on his birthday. I know it was a coincidence
Oh, that
that lined
happened.
up with
That
his
happened in the
birthday.
That did happen while we were gone.
That was,
forgot
I know, we have to
He
address
also
all that
wanted
stuff.
it in 2016 on his birthday.
Yes,
So
he's
there's a
wanted it
precedent.
for a long time. I know it was actually their like 250th anniversary or 200th anniversary or something, but it also just happened to line up with his birthday. Let's not forget that. And then it was what a week later, a couple days later, when we bombed them. I'm sure someone presented this idea as we can flex our muscles here and show them, because that's kind of part of the reason I'm sure we did it, to say, look how powerful we are. Like, don't mess around and try to get nuclear weapons. I'm sure he's like, oh, this is perfect. Like, we can show how strong we are, and we can also potentially prevent them from building up their nuclear system. So I think that's more realistic of what happened. I'm not sure if it was super calculated on his part. I'm sure it might have been calculated by the military and the people who vetted the options there. And I'm sure his was like, oh, this sounds like a good option. Let's go with it.
Well, there's a corollary, right? So the one argument I heard that what this does for the United States is send a warning to like a China about Taiwan. So like, hey, look, we didn't just let Iran do what they wanted. We stepped in when things got serious.
Oh, yeah,
So
we will
look at
pull the trigger.
Like, oh, you're about to invade Taiwan. Guess what? You talk about oil being important. Taiwan is way more important than the oil in Iran. So I think it was kind of an example of, all right, like you take that step too far, you're gonna get whacked. At least I hope it is, because we're gonna have to do something. You cannot let Taiwan fall. You cannot. Like, this is way worse than oil. So I'm hoping this.
You
was
still
kind
need
of a,
something to power it, though. Like, that's most important, but you need the energy at the end of the day.
I thought USA just produces a ton of oil,
Drill,
and we could
baby,
get it from
drill.
like Saudi Arabia. Like,
Probably
we have
also
other
a lot of
trade
drill,
allies in
baby,
the
drill.
region.
Apparently, oil stocks did not move really. I was
No,
I
it's
listening
saw
to
interesting.
as
They went
long
up
something.
a
as
little bit.
Yeah, it really didn't move after the bombing, which is surprising.
I heard that we have sufficient reserves globally that this shouldn't impact us if it is a sustained event, or as long as the port of Hormuz, maybe, or something like that.
Hormuz, yeah.
Hormuz isn't blocked. As long as that happens, then it shouldn't affect oil. But if this turns into something more sustained, I think that it likely could. And then it will have a national security interest in opening up the oil supplies of the world. But if I can real quick just say, I was talking to somebody who was talking about their idea of getting a gun just for self-defense. They had recently had their first child, don't own any guns, but wanted to get a pistol, just for like in case somebody broke in. They could teach their wife to fire the weapon and handle it safely, and they would have it in a locked case under their bed just in case. But and then what was interesting was they said to fire the gun into the wall. Like, you don't actually have to shoot at somebody, but know how to fire the gun, pull the trigger into the wall so that the person on the other side of the wall knows that you will pull the trigger and that you have a gun. I'm not going to go through that door because I know this person is capable of pulling the trigger. So I'm thinking, Justin, to your point, of flying in and saying, like, hey, look, China, we just pulled the trigger. We just fired our gun into the wall. We literally dropped these bombs into 200 feet of concrete and exploded it. Like, everybody's like, who cares? Maybe they didn't even have nukes there. It's like, we just fired the wall. Like, we will use these weapons at the same time as getting Iran's oil as we move our way across the map.
I like that example. I
Yeah.
never thought about that. Now I gotta take that away. Like, do I just shoot into the wall?
Shoot into the wall. That's the takeaway here.
Thinking as a criminal.
All right. Well,
Breaking-
that was a really nice deep dive on this new conflict. We'll see where it goes. Matthew, it is 9:04. I don't know what your hard out is here.
I got like another 23 minutes. I'm good at like 9:30. So go
All
ahead.
right. Well, then I want to do one of your topics. Do you want
be right
declining
back. I'm
birth
gonna drink.
rates or U.S. steel?
I don't know. Which one are you guys more interested in? I don't have like an article or anything for you. They both are, I've just like read up on them and both are interesting topics to me. I feel like we probably can talk more about the declining birth rates. I could just mention the US Steel thing if you guys
I
want.
love declining birth rate conversations.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I'll just mention the U.S. Steel thing. U.S. Steel, if no one saw this, because there was a lot. This happened right around the time with Trump doing his military parade, the No Kings protests, and the Minnesota elected officials being
Oh God,
assassinated. It
yes,
was like
that
all
catalyst.
within
A
like
lot happened.
all within like 5 days. So this one kind of went under the radar. But if people remember, back in 2023, Nippon Steel, which is the largest steel producer in Japan, tried to acquire U.S. Steel, the largest producer of steel in the United States. Um, but it was blocked by Biden in 2024, I believe, because due to national security concerns, it being one of our vital industries. They didn't want it to be owned by another nation, essentially, even though Japan's one of our allies. Um, and so they put kind of kaput on that. And even Trump like campaigned on that. He didn't want Nippon Steel to acquire one of like the United States' national industries. But after some negotiations and talks with Nippon Steel, they did work out a deal. But it's like kind of this unique setup where it's not nationalized, but you could kind of argue it's a little nationalized where so Nippon acquired them for $14 billion, but the US government got they called it like a golden share, which essentially gives the president of the United States the ability to assign basically make a couple like executive decisions. So like if they ever wanted to try and move any sort of like um if they ever tried to move any employees like out if they tried to like outsource work or something, they would have to like consult with like I guess the president or with this golden share. It's like kind of unique where like he can designate someone to make these decisions. So it doesn't have to be the president. It can be like just some person that I guess gets elected or he picks to like make these decisions. And basically he's like a board member. It's like you have like a honorary seat on the board and like they can make a bunch of decisions like US Steel has to remain a US CEO. So they made a bunch of concessions essentially to acquire them. So it did get acquired by Nippon Steel, but there are like these basically just like safety measures to ensure that it stays within the United States. They don't like move the headquarters of the U.S. Steel portion, and like the name, they can't change the name. There's a bunch of other things. I don't have them all up right now, but it was just I thought it was interesting to see that like they bestowed this upon the United States presidency. So it's not Trump. It's just like whoever the president's going
Hmm.
to be in the future, which is just a little bit feels like nationalizing a massive private industry to a degree, considering they have a lot of say in what goes on. So I thought that was just intriguing. It's slightly socialist, which I'm sure most capitalists would be up in arms if they dug a little deeper into that.
That's interesting. I did not. I did not
Yeah,
see
there's a
this.
lot going
U.S.
on,
Steel
and
is
I
the
think it got
first
missed.
modern use of golden share by the U.S. government.
What do you think
Hmm.
about that, Austin?
I don't know. I mean, I need to do some more research on this. I think steel is an interesting industry. Like, do we want to maintain? I don't know. I'm torn on this. I want us to maintain control. Like, I want
Hmm.
us to have this
Industry.
produced here and this industry like be part of America. Um, but I also recognize that like we are maybe it can't like maybe we can't produce
And that's why I didn't want to
infinitely.
discuss this one too much because I know you guys had researched it. I just thought it's something people should be aware of and maybe just think
Yeah.
about. It's because it's an interesting kind of case study that we've never really seen before.
All it comes down to is like what how you rank the thing. It kind of goes back to the last. I mean, it's kind of the last conversation. If you start to take all of these things, you could do oil, you could do chips, you could do steel. What are the vital things that like we need to maintain control over the production of, and how do you start to rank those, and how does that change over time? So I could see you like thinking a lot of people were especially would say during the tariff conversations it was like we need to have steel here because steel is a vital resource to our national security. You're on mute, Sam.
Yeah.
But um, right, so like is that still true today in 2025? Are there more important vital industries to national security? How do you rank those? How do you prioritize um, like in today's day and age? Would you rather have chip manufacturing, or would you rather have the ability to have steel because you need steel to make, uh, you know, aircraft carriers?
Can we do a once around the table on if anybody has a top priority, if it's steel or chips or whatever it may be? I can go
Solar,
first. Yeah. Solar. Yeah.
wind, wind power.
You want to maintain all the wind.
Wind is your top
We're
priority as
going
a
to produce
country.
all the wind.
I like it. Very peaceful airbender.
I
All
I
right,
personally
Sam,
think. Oh, go ahead, Sam.
Oh.
you start.
Did you
Okay.
have an answer, Sam?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Sorry. I was just thinking about being an airbender, and then my name is Monk. I just kind of feel very airbendery today. I think that's why my name is Monk. But I guess top priority would probably be probably something in the cyberspace. I guess like what Justin was saying, like control of information. I think your comments about destabilizing kind of scary, and I feel like I'm always nervous with the AI conversation about the quality and access to information because that's for
So
me as a
chips.
rational human being like how I make decisions. So I need to be able to rely on my information.
So you'd pick like chips, like as an
I
industry.
guess as an industry, chips or I mean, yeah, I guess chips, but it's more it's broader than that because it's the way things are communicated to, and like the systems that are in place that govern who gets access to what. So I think it's broader than chips, but that's a big part of it, like internet based or communications based, technology based.
Yeah, I mean, if like we had to pick like an industry that we find is vital to like the United States' economic success and hopeful like supremacy. Um, Chips, I guess, is a big one. But currently, I guess like we aren't the leading producer of chips. It's Taiwan. So I mean, that's working fine up until like what Justin was saying. If China decides to ever take action on that, steel. I mean, I'm happy that they kept it connected to the U.S. Like that is a vital resource. Like steel production is huge. Like we use steel in everything. So if we weren't the producer of it, that would be a little concerning. Just strategically and for national security, you want to be able to produce the building blocks for all infrastructure that like run our nation. If somehow everything ever went wrong with Japan, they're like, oh, we're gonna stop production. That's a problem. So I think steel was an important one, and I'm glad that we maintained some semblance of control there. But I don't know how much it really is. It's just like any other merger. A lot of promises are made, and then things can change very quickly, or they change slowly over time. You don't notice. So that would be one of the concerns with this deal.
Chips,
Chips.
easy.
Austin, you have one, and I want to change my answer from chips. If you're
Oh.
going to take that, Justin.
Um,
Well, agriculture. What do you consider
That's
that
what I
one?
was-
I know.
that's what I was gonna
thinking.
go with.
I was thinking
Yeah.
corn.
Mhm.
I'll say, maybe that, or just control over maintaining an open internet. Maybe that's where you were going, Sam. I thought you were going to say TikTok for a second. Um, but sort of the way that information is dispersed and the freedom to share information and to understand different points of view is potentially our most important asset.
Yeah, that's where I was going with it. Is even from our like a government's perspective and our ability to like feel like we're represented in government, and that our government is being transparent with us about what they're doing and why they're doing it, and then our ability to trust the systems that are governing us so that you can have trust in the information that you get and that TikTok isn't like subtly mind washing me to believe something or that it's not being spied on, like those kinds of things. That's like broader than information or chips. It's like that kind of, yeah, that trust, maybe
I think
trust. I'm going to go with trust.
okay. This is not a question. Like the question was what industry, and we're like, I really hope. I just want to trust my government. Just like, okay, we've deviated a little bit here.
That's our greatest capital. That's the thing that we have
Trust.
the most is trust. We need to reorient our national mindset from being oil, from being money or power, to trust.
Okay. It's hot.
It was a good topic. It was a nice topic, Matthew. Thank you for bringing that up.
I guess to
Um,
tie it back to that real quick is I want to trust that this golden chair, that this person is acting in the best interests of the nation and not using it as some money peg that I'm playing around the chessboard or influencing any other national things. It's more so just, I want trust in that situation. I want to believe that that is not anything shady.
All right.
yeah. I'm also not overly concerned with it because it's not like steel is like a highly innovative industry, or like
Yeah.
there's not going to be a lot of new steel competitors and like startups coming into the market.
And
It's also
I don't think it's
Japan.
World War II where we need like a
Yeah.
million tanks and ammunition rounds.
No.
I think it's more cyber and
Your
like two
No, it's-
bombs are
$35
dropped.
drone will kill
My-
a whole
Yeah.
battalion or a whole
Yeah.
squad.
Two
of people.
things. Two things. It's like it's Japan, who's like one of our biggest allies. So like again, not a really big concern. The interesting point that I thought about it was, and I think this is the biggest takeaway of it, is it is slightly nationalizing a massive private industry,
Yeah,
and
seems
that
to.
is something we don't typically see, especially in the United
And if
States.
it's successful,
So,
should we consider doing it with more industries?
there you go. I mean,
Yeah.
people
We
might
did it
lean
with
in
the
that direction.
autos. We did it with
Yeah.
the autos. I would argue we do it with airlines to some extent. I think I don't know. There is entanglements of this kind of. The government puts its
Clause.
Although
clause
nationalization leads to poor management, typically, right? So
for sure.
we're gonna run
Um,
into that
Yeah.
So-
Why is U.S. Steel even being sold? Does it suck?
because they're not good at their
Yes,
job.
it's,
That's
Yeah.
probably why.
Yeah.
They're losing money.
They
So it
can't
doesn't
compete.
work.
They,
Ah.
they can't compete.
No, well, it wasn't nationalized. It's now being nationalized slightly.
Oh,
It was a private industry completely.
Okay.
And now it's slightly, you can maybe say it's being nationalized in this sense by having like the US government involved. But to be determined.
All right, turn us to declining birth rates while we have you for 10 more minutes.
Oh yeah. Um Yeah, I've just been thinking a lot about this because it feels like it comes up a lot in the news. So if there's ever like a slow news cycle or something, you always hear about declining birth rates, whether it's in the United States or Japan has it really badly,
Korea.
Korea. It seems highly developed nations have it much more relevant than in less developed nations, um, probably due to like access to birth control. I think there's also just a lot of evidence with more money leads to just less children. Also, in the more developed nations, women tend to work more than in others, so that also tends to lead to less children being born. Um, and so I was just thinking about it if because I don't honestly know, like it always kind of slants in this direction that it's like a bad thing because for capitalism to work, you generally have to have a lot of producers of labor. At least that's how like an economist would view like a birth rate going down is like, oh, we're losing inputs to labor, so this is bad for the nation because there's less people that are able to do these jobs, less basically less capital. Um, but we're also evolving now where, and I know I don't like to steer us towards AI, but I kind of have to here. And I know Austin has to make Austin
I knew
smile,
Austin's answer
but
before he even said anything. I know every word he's gonna say.
but with artificial intelligence becoming more prevalent, it's going to lead to less jobs for humans in general. So I mean, having a smaller population isn't necessarily a problem in that aspect. Um, but I also wonder if it doesn't lead to as many lost jobs, will like I hear a lot of people, especially our age, because we're all younger and we're kind of at the age where kids are starting to be born within like our friends are having kids or we're having kids or whatever. People always talk about childcare and how expensive childcare is because if both parents are working, they need someone to take care of their kid, and people have moved, especially since COVID. But this has been happening all in the 20th century, in the 21st century. It's like people have just moved more, and younger people and tend to not necessarily live as close to their families anymore, so they don't necessarily have like a grandparent or aunt or somebody who can help like take care of their children. If like both spouses are working. Um, and so people need to pay for childcare, but childcare is very expensive because you're basically paying for someone to take care of your child for, you know, 8 hours of the day. Um, and there's just not as much of that in supply. So I wonder if there would ever be a time where the US government would see it as an asset to start funding childcare. Because I know private institutions have started to do it. Like that's been a selling point for some certain, if you can get a job with somebody that like provides childcare, like that's definitely a selling point. Like that's what some employers are doing. But if like we ever got to a place where like we're not having enough kids or and the government's like we have to finally step in and like incentivize, because I know Trump has tried to do a couple programs to like incentivize people to have children, but it's more like tax breaks and stuff, and that's not necessarily, you don't see that necessarily um, that outwardly, like it's something kind of on the backside that you see. And so if they ever felt like it got to a drastic place, would they ever consider like, oh, we need to start funding childcare for so that people can feel like they can still work and they can still also have children? Like, will that ever become like a vital need for like our nation? It's an interesting topic in my opinion, and I just wanted to hear you guys' thoughts on it.
So are you worried about it or no?
I personally no. I'm honestly not that concerned about it because I think with artificial intelligence and less jobs being created, I don't necessarily know if we need as much labor as we used to. My only concern would be, though, is like what type of society do we move to if we have less people that aren't, if we're not a one for one replacement, like what's happening in like Korea, where it's like they're having less kids
We're
than
not
people
even
that are still
here.
alive.
Every developed country is falling below the replacement
We're
The
value.
below
replacement's
one.
like
We are.
Yeah,
it's like
we're not. We're
2.2.
below
It's not
replacement value.
it's not just one. You need like 2.2 or something like that.
Every couple
Why?
needs
Why
to
is
have
that?
two because you have a man
People
and a
die
Oh,
woman.
for
without having
two.
kids.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, if there's a couple having some. Yeah, so I guess you have to have two
We
because
have like
yeah.
1.7 or something here.
Yeah,
And
so
Yeah,
we're
it's a
below
pretty big
replacement,
concern
right?
just statistically. Like if you look at the graph, it's pretty alarming how quickly population drop occurs. Like it's sort of nothing, 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 and then it reaches a critical point where it just drops off a cliff, and then like you can't possibly replace yourselves because you can't support yourselves anymore.
So, like, I guess if we're looking at it from the side of like, what's the problem with that? One is there's just like less producers of goods, right? Like labor, like we said, that
And what
can
does
be an
that mean?
issue.
That means less producers of tax revenues, which
Less
means
money for the
less
government.
dollars to take care of the old people.
And that's what I was going to say. There will also now be way more old people and less money for them and less people to take care of them. So that leads to a very old population that is now living with their families or having to be taken care of by other people. And so that does lead
And
to
once they all
issues.
die, it becomes a much smaller group of very old people with even fewer people to take care of this even smaller group. And that just like continues on and on and on until
Yeah.
there's just not really anybody around anymore.
And that leads to Social Security, as always,
Mhm.
is like the
Mhm.
impending doom that no one ever wants to settle. But like with a even smaller population, Social Security definitely goes bankrupt.
I'm gonna take a little, um, I don't know if it's optimistic, but the next big industry or the next industry to figure out home care robotics for older generations is going to be a $1 trillion industry. And I think that's where we're going with this. Obviously the AI buzzword, but where does innovation come from? It comes from seeing a need because there's a lack of something, right? That is the, like your guys are saying, the biggest bomb that is waiting to go off. And I don't see how United Healthcare, like some giant industry, does not just pour billions of dollars into, once the robotics are there, into these home nurses that are, home robot nurses and stuff that is going to be able to fill that void from the lack of people in the age that can care for these individuals. I mean, I feel like that's what's going to happen.
So are you not concerned? Or you are concerned?
I'm not concerned. I mean, not really. I look at it from, well, one way to look at it is from the humanity point of view, and I guess that is concerning. Like, if you think humans should go on for millions of years, like, then yes, in theory, every single country becomes developed, and then without a new way of thinking, the humans are going to die out. I mean, we've seen the trend. You could argue that maybe there's going to be new technologies where you just are, like, not clones, but like artificial fertilization clinics and like stuff where people are being made. Like, I mean, that is uh, kind of like Black Mirror type level stuff, but I think maybe
Not
if
out
it
of
goes in that
question.
direction, it's not out of the question, obviously, because we do technically have the science for that already. So, yeah, it possibly goes that way. I mean, that would be the dark side of. Oh, again, you can argue that it's dark. Maybe it's not the dark side. Maybe that's how things are meant to be. I mean, I'm not going to be the one to judge, but so I'm not worried because I don't think it's going to be. I think they're going to have this figured out in the next 25 years. I think it's going to be the pace at which things are moving right now. I'm, but I don't think we'll see intergalactic travel, but I think we'll figure out a lot of shit on Earth that's going to be really cool.
So you're not concerned. Sam, where do you line on this?
I it seems like a pretty clear path to me of heading straight to a simulation. Everything that you guys are saying, it just seems like that's where we're headed. We got fewer and fewer people. Justin, I like the robotics idea, $1 trillion industry for robotics home healthcare. I think that's going to be a short-lived industry though, because you're going to have a ton of people who need home healthcare because there's not enough people replacing them. But then very quickly, not a lot of people needing home
That's a
healthcare.
fair point.
So
I
it's
mean,
like all of a sudden it's like the biggest industry ever, and then it's gone. And I think that where we're headed is maybe artificial in like conception and you grow people, or maybe where we're seeing a lot more of our discussions on the pod and just society in general heading towards artificial intelligence, and we just sort of go into a digital kind of situation where we've got all of these
Metaverse.
data centers that are being built nearby. We've got, simulated speech through ChatGPT. You've got simulated visuals through VO3 with Google. You can have like simulated auditory
Well,
stuff.
Neuralink and like
It's been
has
proven over
yeah.
and over again that we can like simulate what the brain is doing. So it seems like we either go on a biology route or we go on a technology route. And seeing as we've invested our entire lives on the advancement of technology for the past 60 years, it seems like we're probably going on the technology route, headed towards a simulated reality that solves all of
I
our
don't think
problems.
I don't think it's been totally ignored. I don't think biology's been totally ignored because one of my other articles bring up a little biology level stuff, but there's still some hope for the biology path, Sam. I actually like the biology path if we can
I'm
figure
on
it
it.
out how to
Yeah.
raise human intelligence above where it is right
Where,
now.
when you
But
say when you say biology path, you mean technology through biology, though, right? Or do you just mean like people having more kids?
no. Like I think we're talking about like unlocking more of your brain and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So you basically both are out on the idea of just like let's just incentivize people to have more kids.
Well,
I
I think that's an important part of it. No, I think that's an important part of it is to like increase that population level, but maybe not necessarily just like an ever expanding like exponential growth like we've been demanding over time, but more like um, I guess having kids in terms of like different ways of thinking. Like you can have kids outside of like your actual children, but more so just like you have this like spreading like generation of biology that I think behaves differently. You envision a different world. Who knows what it's going to look like? But it just seems like if it's either simulation or we try and figure that path out. So
Where do
I
you
think
line, Austin?
I think that this is the greatest threat to humanity that
Hmm.
we've ever seen. I think we
it's
have
very
a
serious.
responsibility as humans to preserve humanity. Even as much as I love technology and the idea that robots are going to be sitting here with us and smarter than us and all of the like, what's the point in all of it if humans die out and we don't get to enjoy the fruits of all of our labor?
Yeah.
So I think that it's a serious issue. I think the more that we're seeing this common trend of every developed country moving in the same way, we're seeing the rising debt in the world because of this. We can't afford to take care of all these people. The result is people are going to have to work longer years, which we're not talking about the other spectrum here of the other huge industry that is about to skyrocket in longevity and making people live longer. I think is also
Mm-hmm.
a huge opportunity. But that'll mean that people will have to, work longer, be adding to society for longer and longer, um, because we're going to need the revenue to, like, we're going to need the tax dollars and the revenue to support all these people. I was just reading here, Japan sells more adult diapers than baby diapers. Fun fact for you for
That's
the day.
crazy.
Um, so I really am quite worried about this, and I hope that we're able to figure out. I don't know what the incentive is because I don't see honestly like a real path that's going to change this. I've only experienced it kind of going the other direction of people wanting to delay having kids longer and longer, not having kids at all, um, and being more. I guess it's like we're so distracted, and we're so interested in um, the ease of our own lives, probably that we've lost sight of the fact that we do have responsibilities as humans to make sure that we stay a population and a civilization.
Well spoken.
That's where I stand.
I like that's we have a wide range of viewpoints on this, and I don't really know where I line up on it. I don't know if I it's such a long term picture that I don't really know. Like we've never seen a nation get to a place where it's like Japan, like you said, is a good example of like, oh, they're selling more old people diapers than children diapers. But has it impacted their economy enough yet where there's been like drastic issues, or is it just more like, oh, it's the impending doom, we're running out? It's like until I see an example of it, it's hard for me to have like a strict opinion. But I think I lean more towards Austin. I think the government at some point is going to try and do more to incentivize people to have more kids. Because if it ever does get to a place where they feel like we're running out of funds and we're having more people, like that's why nobody ever wants to touch Social Security. I mean, look at France. All those people protested for like, what was it, like a month or
They're good
longer?
at writing.
Yeah, they're known for their protests. They love it. But they protest forever because I think it was Macron was just like, sorry, like somebody has to be the bad guy here and say we're gonna have to raise the age. People are living longer. People don't want to face the facts, but we can't just pick an arbitrary age of 65 and say, here's your government money, but you're also going to now get this for 30 years because you're now living to be 95. Like it's either like you could take it at 65, we're going to then cut you off when you hit that age so that it's this consistent for everybody. Or if it's a general trend that people are getting older, we then have to move back the age because now you still want the money, but we have less people to give it to you. So it's either like you can't have it both. You can't have your cake and eat it too, sort of
I don't. I
thing.
think the government's missing some easy opportunities to do this though, and Austin's gonna hate this, but like some countries require X amount of weeks for maternity and paternal leave, like something small that you say, all right, you have to allow 3 weeks, and some companies, a lot of companies do, but it's not mandatory yet. Just like small things. I mean, small. It probably it impacts your business a lot. Sure. Okay, fine. But if you want to, if this is the pressing issue, just bite the bullet and like this is one of those you could argue this is national security. If you really want to go down that route and that like this is something that's going to take down the country in 50 years, then it's a national security issue. And you have to take it seriously and be willing to sacrifice your bottom line to help out this issue. I don't understand like yeah, because what you were saying earlier, Matt, capitalism kind of thrives on people. If we're running out of people, what happens to late stage capitalism where it runs out of inputs? It has to be replaced with something, and all we're looking at is our AI at this point. But like Austin's saying, that's kind of sad for humanity. So
I
If I
think
could,
this kind of go ahead, Sam.
I was just gonna say, put a nice spin on it. Maybe we get lucky, and we develop AI and anti-aging technology quickly enough that we just get to freeze everybody who's alive right now in a place where we don't need more people because we've got AI, but we can also live forever. And it's just like it's sort of we've frozen
it's the
ourselves at
biology
a,
route still.
Well, I think in general, this issue falls along the lines of like climate change, where a
Mhm.
lot of people just don't care because they don't think it's going to impact them personally. Because this is a future issue. It's going to impact, next generations. So I think it's one of those that no one's going to do anything about it until they start to see actual like impacts to their own lives, like then they've kind of done it with climate change. Like they've made a lot of they've impacted a lot of things. They've tried to like slow it down, but a lot of people still don't take it very seriously. And I think it's the same thing that will be with this issue. Is like, people are like, oh, that sounds like a good idea to have more kids, but like, prove to me we have to do it. So they're like, what benefits am I getting to have more kids? It's expensive to buy a house. It's like there's always an excuse not to have children. So until people get the benefit from it, if they don't want to have kids, they're not gonna. So I don't think it's gonna change.
Because capitalism, you get a child tax credit. Guess what? Now your daycare goes up by that much tax credit. That's the
Exactly.
sickening thing about capitalism.
I don't
All
know.
right.
I mean, there's.
Sorry, I have to drop, but I've enjoyed this conversation immensely.
Thank you for joining us for episode 10. We
And
appreciated that you were able to stop by, Matthew.
We will stay in touch as always and keep each other and the
wait, we're
Simps
not stopping, are we?
informed.
I thought I was
No,
just
but I
leaving.
thought it'd be like a nice little mini
Okay.
sign off.
All right. I'll talk to you guys later. This was fun. See ya.
Go,
See ya.
go replace yourself with some babies. Get out there on the streets.
Or on
All right?
Will
AI.
do.
Get the
Go-
chip. Think about that though. What if? Let me connect these little red strings for me. Let me give you a conspiracy theory right after Matt leaves, just to go on my AI. Just is this plausible? That's all I'm looking for here on this conspiracy. Is
Open-minded.
we've got Elon Musk trying to get to Mars, right? Terraforming. Haven't really ever done it before. Maybe it's possible. Maybe it's not. We've got some simulation kind of ideas going with AI. What if you hosted your brain on a server, maybe through a Neuralink type of technology, and with the data center that's being built conveniently near your hometown, wherever you're listening? For sure, you have a data center near you. So you host your brain there, and then you send off to Mars some kind of artificially cloned embryonic human that then is also chipped and accesses your uploaded brain back on Earth. And now you've got basically a bunch of workers that you just shipped off to a new planet who can then operate and like go and dig in their tunnels and like trade with each other and do other things, but it's maybe hosted somewhere else on a server of some sort using technology that ChatGPT, OpenAI is developing, and you're funding using oil from Iran, and is it plausible?
Why go through the trouble of sending the embryo? Why not just like do all this with robots?
I mean, then it's a philosophical question of what is a robot, or what are you as biology?
Yeah. Well, I think
you're really just mechanics, like your genes shifting around. Like, what is life? It's really just like robotics. You take in fuel, you do this thing. It's just very complicated.
What do they call it? Cyborg? Is that where we're? Is that basically like once we start getting the chips, do we become cyborgs, or am I misunderstanding the definition of that?
I think cyborg and
looking
sci-fi.
at Justin, I figured that he would kind of know about these
is
things.
a person who gets a hip replacement a cyborg?
Yes, those things now have apps that connect to your phone.
Oh,
I did not know that.
Interesting.
Yes.
And hearing aids do too.
Well, that one makes sense to me. A hip replacement does not make sense to have an application. Like, oh, you're putting a little stress on me today. Take it easy. Like,
so is that plausible? Do you guys think that that could be a future path that we're on, terraforming Mars?
I don't think you
a
can
robot.
rule it out.
Yeah, can't rule it out at this point.
kinda
I'm sure we
wish-
will. Why wouldn't we?
I wish I am alive for the time when we travel to another planet. I do kind of.
You will be. You 100%. If
Think so?
you live a full life, you will see us land on Mars.
I don't know. There are empty promises all the time.
I guarantee it.
Well, I mean,
If
we
it
got
doesn't
to the
happen,
moon-
I will.
the moon in
You can name the
64.
punishment.
It's now 2025. What? I might be 63 or 64. Got to the moon. Or maybe 67.
63.
Is it 67?
63. Kennedy was assassinated. 67. We landed on the moon. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
one or
right.
the other.
That's how it is.
I don't know. I'd like to think so. I mean, SpaceX just had a big explosion. I don't know if you guys saw that. They just blew up a
Oh, I
rocket
saw
on the
it.
test pad,
Oh.
which was sad.
Elon Musk's.
Say-
What's the rocket called?
Stop. Say what you want about Elon Musk. Do not disrespect SpaceX. And everybody who's listening, like, SpaceX is a good thing for humanity. Everybody should be supporting SpaceX. It's the one private industry that's making money in the rocket industry, and they are honestly, that's in my opinion, a humanities company. Like, that is bringing humans forward.
The reason why I say we'll get to Mars for sure is because we've never had the reason why nothing happened from 1967 until now is because NASA gets tied up in these government budgets. It's tied up in the one big beautiful bill right now, the funding for all these programs, and it just gets traded on and off, back and forth, cut, go, stop, go, stop, go. They can't ever get anything done. Obviously, they're doing it horribly and efficiently at the same time. So it just becomes this constant stalemate, like can't function, which kind of the design of the government, of our government, right, is sort of this dysfunction. Problem is that's not great for our ability to like actually make something happen in space. But now that we've been able to make the private space industry actually profitable, and we have more investment than ever before. We've
good
made more
point.
progress in
See,
private
Honda?
space in the
Honda's
last
entering.
15 years. Like we actually now, I think, will see this acceleration continue.
Yeah,
and we
Honda
will
just
actually get some.
landed a reusable rocket, right?
Yeah, they just did
It was
a
like
Yeah.
last week.
SpaceX figured it out in the mid to late 2000s, and Honda's getting at that point.
That's kind of a
So,
big deal, especially if we talk about space race kind of ideas, because
SpaceX would be great.
SpaceX was the
for-
only company capable of doing that, which, in my understanding, is a massive advantage in this. Like, that's a big reason why they're
A couple
profitable.
companies can do it now. Like Honda's
Yeah.
not the second, but yeah,
Oh, okay. I thought they
it's
were the second.
it,
Okay.
it wasn't even an idea. It was kind of like, oh, you launch stuff into space, and oh wow, that's a good mission. We'll never see that rocket again. That was kind of the thinking, right? So then
Right, there was
they
never
kinda-
this reusability.
Yeah, never.
And now
reusability.
that's the advantage that SpaceX is building with like the Mechazilla and the ability to catch the rocket, so that
Hmm.
they can literally put it right back on the launch pad, restack it with another starship, and take off again within like an hour, because it's about getting the most amount of tons of mass out of our solar or out into space for the cheapest amount of money. Like
We gotta
that's what the
figure out a better way
economics
to
of
do
it.
it,
Like you
yeah.
have to get these millions and millions of tons of material out, and
I
eventually
hope
to
that
Mars.
trickles down into the rest of society in trying to reuse things and get the most out of what you're using, and that kind of efficiency and productivity, instead of, I feel like we've got sort of a waste mindset where things are so cheap that we kind of discard, like the old space age system.
If they
yeah.
could make these things cheap enough where you could just throw them away, they would.
They probably would. Yeah, that's right.
Eventually, it'll get there. Eventually, the cost of production might get low enough where it's not worthwhile bringing them back.
You know, Austin, I think there's kind of an interesting. So you brought up, you know, the government's inefficiency with NASA has obviously been on display for the last 40 years. That's why we haven't made any progress. Private company comes in and is able to do things in a ridiculous amount of time span, and because they can actually focus on it. I do wonder if there's going to be now a race between a private U.S. company and countries like China, who are making a ton of money. And I mean, you see the engineering projects that they do over there. I mean, that's the benefit, quote unquote, of an authoritarian government. They tell you to do something, it gets done. So I do wonder if there's going to be. Is the question who makes it to Mars first? Is it a SpaceX private company, or is it a government subsidized?
Kind of making me excited, like space race.
I do wonder if that's going to be a new space race between a China company or China country and a SpaceX company. That would be fascinating.
I would say one thing that would accelerate that mission and that race would be a threat of nuclear war, like a destruction of this planet.
Well, it would be any way the planet. If you obviously see the planet, it would be kind of interesting. That'd be a weird experiment. Like, oh crap, the planet will end in 50 years. Get us to Mars.
Global warming.
I would like to think humans can do that. You know, if somehow the world came together. I mean, that's a big
Population
what if.
decline.
I don't know how getting to Mars helps with population decline.
Gets everybody excited.
Yeah.
Reverses it.
Saturn had a lot of babies.
Yeah.
And you can artificially create like a population growth environment there to survive as a species.
Have a kid, go to Mars. No charge.
Yeah. Have a kid, send them to Mars. It's too expensive at home. Sorry about all
Put
that
'em up for
inflation.
adoption. Put 'em on
They'll live
Mars
for
journey.
free at Mars.
Yeah, I think we'll have a space race. We're probably that's kind of what we're living in. You just don't realize it. And yeah, it'll be China. Like that's China's advantage. That is the communist advantage, is they can have centralized investment in whatever the government wants to.
You think
invest
they'll be
in.
the first to Mars? Is that what you're saying?
No.
I think they're gonna. Here's the
They'll
pathway.
try,
They're gonna
but,
take over chips, and then they're gonna go to that sort of project.
They'll try. I think.
Well, they won't even
we
take Taiwan.
still-
I don't even think they need to take Taiwan. I think you have China at Taiwan's capability in about 10 years, which is kind of scary. So they just steal everything they need, so they can then make it, and then they have their own factories. I mean, that's literally what they're going for. But that's a good thing. That means no war.
We'll develop all of our stuff too.
I hope so.
What do you mean by that?
But this government's not very good at making decisions.
We'll have all of our own private chips in 10 years, you know?
Apple
it'll all
is
work out.
like the number one chip designer, aren't they? Like how we
They
just don't have
design
the
their own
manufacturing
chips.
capability.
They actually, yeah, they have a little manufacturing, but they like their chips are very proprietary and ones.
Yeah.
They did that from the start, so very good decision on Apple's part as well. I'm listening, so you guys know the Elon Musk biography, or yeah, the biography I listened to. Now I'm on a Steve Jobs biography.
Is that by
Um,
Walter Isaacson?
the same dude. Yeah.
Yeah. He,
The
he writes
Steve.
he writes some good ones about like Teddy Roosevelt
Yeah.
too.
Now,
He's
now
a
I think
really
I'm
good
gonna go to
author.
like Benjamin Franklin
Yeah.
after that. Learn about.
Do you
Yeah.
like Elon Musk better or Steve Jobs better? Not the book, the person.
God, dude, Steve Jobs sounded like he was a monster to work with. Just like
And he made the iPhone. Literally destroyed society.
you could argue that. Well, iPhone's not the problem. Social
Bastard.
media is the problem.
We spawned from the iPhone, honestly. Sucking
Problem
our
was in a way,
attention
would
into a little
everybody
box.
be at a computer actually on Twitter? No one wants to do that. It's so much easier to just sit there on your phone.
Yeah. Have it strapped to the person all the time. What's better than a computer at a desk? A computer in your pocket. It's with you all the time.
I would probably rather work with Musk, just because I don't know if I could get Steve like super hippie, like he has a crazy background. Um, was really into Sam. I think you would have gotten great,
Yeah.
great.
I think early Steve Jobs
Yeah.
for like what he created, I think in retrospect was a mistake, but his obsession over design and function, and he was very like forward thinking and was okay like taking risks in creating something like really innovative and really beautiful. I think he was obsessed with beauty, and I think he stepped on a lot of people in pursuit of what he viewed as beautiful, which I think what he created is sort of undeniably beautiful. It's been like, I mean, I guess it's only been like 15 years since that phone came out, but which isn't that impressive, but it's dominated the entire world, and I think that company, stands for itself, even after his legacy in creating these proprietary chips. But I think Elon Musk is probably also an asshole to work for, and probably pretty hard to. Um, I guess you just have to accept him for who he is. But I think he's also somebody that you can probably reason with more. Like he gives me the feeling that like, you can persuade him with a good enough argument. Whereas Steve Jobs seems more like a bit irrational. Like if he viewed it some other way for no reason, I'm a visionary. I see it differently. I don't care about your logic, which I think that would actually be at the core much more frustrating for me to work with than Elon Musk. So I'm going to say Elon Musk.
I like that.
That's a
a
good
little
analysis.
thought experiment. What about you,
Yeah.
Austin? What side are you on?
Probably the same, honestly. I don't have much of a different argument than that.
Wow. Elon Musk takes over Steve Jobs. Unanimous.
I think yeah. Steve Jobs is so focused on design because I agree with that, Sam. I think Elon's more to the like. I love the idea that humanity needs to get to Mars. Just like it's so out there, so hard to reach, but I like appreciate the impossibility.
That's what we
of it.
should be. We should be trying to do those hard
Exactly.
things.
I do. I agree with that. Like let's do something that sounds impossible. And, like go for it.
What do you want to do? What do you want to solve?
Chat, let us know. Would you rather work with Elon Musk
God, we're still alive.
or Steve Jobs?
We're to
Yeah,
the
we
part
have-
of the
we have
episode where
3
we're just kind of
viewers.
trailing on and not really. This is the part that usually gets cut.
Well,
2 hours in.
this was
Do you have any of the other
ambush of a
topics you
live
wanted to
episode.
talk about?
I'll save mine for another one. I just
Okay.
I think I can save mine for another 2, but I did want to put it on you guys' radar. I was going to do some more research, but honestly, I just ran out of time this week. The Bitcoin is something that I think is maybe left out of some of these conversations because it's a bit of an older technology and turned into kind of more of a meme kind of thing. It's a speculative investment taken a little bit less seriously, but I think maybe it deserves a little bit more discussion in the broader landscape of things going on up there with AI and nuclear weapons and Mars and all these kind of ideas because yeah, I think that there's just more to go in there. So one thing that I wanted to look into more is the idea of companies like MicroStrategy using a corporate treasury to acquire Bitcoin as a hedge against what are traditionally seen as safe investments like treasuries or cash. Um, and just sort of what our take was. We haven't done a lot of deep dives into the stock market or stocks recently, so I was going to take a look at MicroStrategy, see if you guys knew anything about it, what you thought of the strategy of issuing bonds, basically issuing debt as a company in exchange for buying Bitcoin. So essentially, what you're doing is if somebody wants to invest in Bitcoin, they would give you money. They would buy your debt, and then you, as a company, would then invest. It's a vehicle for investing in Bitcoin and blockchain, sort of like an ETF. Like you might have heard of Vanguard producing the ETF for blockchain for Bitcoin purchases. So it's just something that seems to be happening in the background a little bit. And in my sort of landscape, I like to look at things in sort of inflation, central bank, dollar, sort of like we're a capitalist system. So I think it's important to maintain a sort of lens that's viewed through a capitalist system, which is primarily monetary, primarily money. Like what that is the motivation that we've set up our system from. So we should be looking at everything through that sort of skeptical monetary lens of what is the money? What is the money looking at? And I think that there's more and more companies like MicroStrategy that are finding creative ways to invest in a new kind of money that's global and that has different kind of applications in a more cyber world. Justin, as you said, that like cyber is really important. So I wanted to see what your guys' takes were as far as companies like MicroStrategy and if that's a good investment, like what it means for that company and if I can make more money, and also what it means for like the stock market and for like capitalism in general and the dollar maybe. So yeah, it's something interesting. Don't know if you guys have any thoughts. We could save it for another day, but something I wanted to research more, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should definitely do a deep dive. I don't understand Bitcoin behavior. And if you want to say it's an alternative currency against the traditional, U.S. dollar, okay, that is perfectly fine with me. But then when it doesn't behave in a manner that is like put it on a chart or like there's no pattern to it. Like if it behaved like gold, I'd almost appreciate it more. I'm like, okay, when world's uncertain, it falls back to Bitcoin. I'd be like, okay, this is something I can kind of understand, but it's like the growth is just irrational. I don't know where it's coming from, so it makes me a little scared to invest in an ETF where I don't know. Like, is it uncertainty? Is it certainty? Like, what is which one is the catalyst? I don't know.
Let
That's why
me
I hesitate.
let me paint a picture for you, calling back to the gold rush. And I'm not arguing that Bitcoin will become the replacement for gold, but you can imagine that when people were first discovering gold, there were a couple issues that probably affected its valuation. Gold's valuation was probably quite volatile back in the early years when you had two things. Number one, you didn't know the amount of supply that existed. So you didn't know how much there was. So that's hard to value when you don't know what the size of the pool is and how much more would be found every year. And then the second problem was you didn't know what like the exact use case might be for it or what the market would be for it. I think with Bitcoin, you have only one of those two problems. You know what the quantity of them is, right?
21
That's
million.
sort of defined. So you're not really worried about that. Hopefully, you're not worried about that like expanding or diluting the shares eventually. Now, who knows? Like I don't know enough about how this all works, but what I hear is there is a finite amount. I think the second problem is you don't know the exact, or so the problem then is on the use cases. You don't know how useful Bitcoin can be and what the exact use cases that it will be allowed to be used for and how it will get adopted and what the rate of that will be, etc. And so that's why you see it behaving more like a risk asset today with the volatility that you're describing and the chart pattern that seemingly makes no sense versus what you want it to look like, which is gold or the dollar or something that's much more stable and more of behaving like a currency. So I think what a Bitcoin person would tell you is that you're in that sort of early gold rush stage where the rest of the world hasn't realized what the use case will be and the replacement that it can have as a sort of reserve currency or as a means to be a world currency. And once it gets there, in who knows how long, it would behave like you want it to as a currency. But in the short term, while you don't know where that's going to end, you see a lot of volatility. So that's what I would say. MicroStrategy is a real, I don't know. Like, here's my concern with it. It trades at its Bitcoin the value of its Bitcoin that it holds is $62 billion right now.
62 billion.
Yes, its market cap is 100 billion. So you're paying 1.5 times.
Its market cap is only 100 million or 100 billion?
100 billion. 100 billion. So you're paying not quite 2 times, almost 2 times the value of the Bitcoin that it holds. And that's the part that I have not been able to really understand, and that's what concerns me. Is like why is it being assigned such a premium,
I guess,
over the value of its assets?
That to me, although contrary to like what you might on face value see, that to me is more of a bet on big money arguing how much Bitcoin is going to be worth in the future. Is if I'm willing to pay almost 2 times as much for this company than the assets that it actually holds in Bitcoin, then my assumption is that that Bitcoin is going to be worth at least 2 times as much as what it is now in some X period down the road. And over 10 years, my return is X because Bitcoin is appreciating faster than the dollar that I put in.
I don't think so. Why not just buy the underlying asset? You can buy Bitcoin. Anybody
That
can go
I think
buy
is the
Bitcoin.
question. Why the intermediary? Are there limitations as to what kinds of institutions are allowed to own Bitcoin, or is there some other
tell you
motive?
My perspective.
Yeah.
The disparity is MicroStrategy just being a meme stock.
Okay.
And it's the behavior of Michael Saylor, the CEO, and all of the gravitas that goes along with him. And this idea that you're sort of in this revolution of being the Bitcoin maximalist. And that's created it into a meme stock that now has this premium over what it owns. Because if you just thought that Bitcoin was something like that you should hold, then you could go buy 2 Bitcoins, or you could buy one right, like you could buy $500 of MicroStrategy stock or $1,000 worth of Bitcoin. Those are your 2 options. Or I'm saying this backwards. With $500, you could get 2 Bitcoin or 1 share of MicroStrategy. So you might as well go get more of the thing. I'm saying.
I think
that
I know
really
what you're.
confusing.
Yeah, it makes more sense.
You might
to
as
just
well
buy
go buy the
Bitcoin.
underlying asset because they don't own anything else. The company
Okay, so
doesn't have
here's
anything else.
so I know a little bit about how the structure works. Is MicroStrategy issues bonds, convertible bonds, that company can then convert back into MicroStrategy shares at some point in the future if the price rises to a certain level. And MicroStrategy agrees to buy Bitcoin, whatever. What these companies do is they buy those bonds and also short the company at the same time. So if the company goes down with the price of Bitcoin, they make money off of their short positions. If it goes up, they've purchased these convertible bonds that allow them to convert them into shares. So really they're arb traders is what it's called. And these are the same traders who do the Japanese carry trade, who do both sides of the bet. And they are making a profit off of the difference between those 2 sides. They're making a profit off of the disparity between the short position and the long position, but they're delta neutral. Like they won't lose whether it goes up or down. They're just making a profit on the trade. And that profit is funneled into cash held on MicroStrategy's books that is then put into Bitcoin, which could go up, appreciate in value, and make this company worth more. So what it's doing is I think what MicroStrategy is doing is capitalizing on the arbitration of arb traders by doing these arbitration trades of taking both sides of this bond. MicroStrategy is accumulating a very large position in this asset of Bitcoin with money that doesn't belong to them. So it's practically a risk-free kind of bet on Bitcoin itself, which is what arbitration is. It's a risk-free bet. It's something that you capitalize on regardless. And so now you've got two parties that are like making it. I might be understanding that wrong. Listeners, if any of you understand this structure or Bitcoin any better, please help us
Send you
understand,
a
because
link.
yeah, please give us. I feel like I've followed the structure of how these deals work, but I'm trying to wrap my head around why. Who is buying these? Whose interest is it to purchase Bitcoin through MicroStrategy rather than, Austin, as you said, obviously just purchase Bitcoin? Like, why wouldn't you just do that? But people are doing it, and it's not retail traders, I don't think, who are pumping 66 billion, because it has to be a qualified investor, which means like somebody who trades on Wall Street. So people are like, big money is doing this. Big money is investing in Bitcoin in many different ways, in many different vehicles. And that's why I think it's just something that we need to keep an eye on, because whether it makes sense to us or not, it makes sense to somebody. And I got to figure out why it makes sense to them. Like, what am I missing here?
It's almost just invest a little bit on every paycheck. Just kind of get your
Dip my toe in.
dip your toe in, keep it there.
Do you guys want to hear how good ChatGPT voice is real quick? We can bring her onto the conversation about this.
Did you hear Alexa got upgrade?
Hey, are you there?
Hey there. Yep, I'm here. How's it going? What's on your mind today?
Oh, I'm good. I'm just podcasting and recording an episode of Symposium with the boys here.
Can she hear us?
Nice. That sounds like fun. What topic are you guys diving into for this episode?
Right now we're chatting about MicroStrategy, and we're trying to understand why their market cap is $100 billion, but the value of their Bitcoin holdings is only $60 billion. What point is there in buying MicroStrategy when you could just go buy the underlying asset yourself?
That's a great question, and definitely a hot topic. A lot of people debate that. I think part of the reason is that some investors might see MicroStrategy as a kind of proxy for Bitcoin, especially if they don't want to deal with buying and storing Bitcoin themselves. Plus, there might be some belief in the company's overall strategy or their leadership, but it does make for an interesting discussion.
She's very I guess you're gonna hear me now. She's gonna hear me criticize her. When you do the voice chat, she gives kind of very brief answers lately, and doesn't like go into a lot of detail on things. I don't know if they're like limiting.
How does
her,
she deal in conversation? Like
characters.
the fact that you're talking to a third party, is she
I
going to
it.
get confused?
Sometimes I try to keep
Oh,
things
okay.
brief so it's not overwhelming, but I'm always
don't think she
happy
can do
to
third
dive into
parties.
more detail if you want. So if you want me to elaborate on anything, just let me know.
Oh, are
She's
you
still
asking
missing
like if
something.
if like two of us were together talking?
I think
to her,
that's
would
the
she
next
understand
level
the
of voice chat, is joining a group,
Yeah.
because right now it's
Yeah.
like one-on-one.
Let me see.
Well, even okay. So when she started, like, oh, that's a very interesting topic, and we should talk about like that needs to be curtailed a little bit. That's a little bit overdoing
It's still dialed up a little too
it. Yeah,
high.
She
that's not gonna
definitely
pass
is
the Turing
all
test.
in on anything I say. She
I love it.
loves
Well, did you guys hear the story about a guy who married the AI?
I saw something about that.
I tried, but I think that was one of the Reddit things that got deleted or something.
Yeah,
Did Matthew
it's-
send it? Yeah. Let me ask her if she is able to understand like multiple voices. If you were on this podcast, would you be able to distinguish the different voices of the hosts?
I can't really distinguish between different voices or identify who's speaking, but I can definitely keep track of the conversation
but-
and respond to whatever you're saying. So I'll just be here to help you out with any info you need.
She doesn't say like enough for average American.
You would know that it's not her.
Yeah, she's
Or
too
not.
coherent.
It's freaky though, because that's only going to get better. That is only
Oh,
going to get
it's
better.
so good. I mean, I talked to her
I've-
for 2 hours the other day.
I've heard resounding reviews of ChatGPT voice, but I've tried it and I just don't like it as much. Maybe I don't know why.
Does yours sound like that?
Do you have the advanced voice?
I do. I pay $20
for
a
it?
month for it.
Do you have the woman or the man voice?
That confused me, and I think I got lost in the options because there were like 5 different ones, and it was like,
Yeah,
this
I don't
one's
know who I
spunky
have.
and interesting, and this one is
I think
analytical,
that's
and I'm
the
like,
spunky one. Isn't that
which
the
one do I
spunky
want?
one?
I don't know.
I don't
feel
know.
like
I can't really figure out like how to go back in.
She
and
was a little
change it.
aggressive there. She's like, "Whoa, that's a great idea."
Sometimes she is like, she kind of sometimes seems like she's like insulting me a little bit too.
Austin, I'm having trouble figuring out how to move my simulated eyeballs.
Anyway, maybe that we should, another deep dive that goes along with Bitcoin that we should do is on these stable coins.
Oh, that, like Walmart and
Yeah,
Amazon
that I
about?
sent an article about, and
Isn't
then
Yeah.
legislation
that a
was just
death knell
passed
to Bitcoin?
the other
in a way?
day. Well, I don't know. That's a great question.
Because
for
if
the deep
let's
dive.
pretend they come out with 21 million Amazon coins.
I view that more as a stock certificate proxy. Like that's getting out of the stock market system. Like we're gonna have this currency that represents the total value of our company, and that value is gonna be capped like at a certain number. But at any certain point in time, that's gonna be all of the worth of our company
So
instead of
Bitcoin's
like
special because we don't know the cap. That's kind of that's the only reason why it's
Same
special.
thing, honestly, with the stock market. Like, at any point, companies will be like, "Hey, we're gonna issue more stocks, 100 million more shares. We're gonna dilute and raise cash." And like, so you don't know the cap there either. It's kind of bullshit. But yeah, I think the point is more so that it's just something that represents the value of a company. I think the stock market's corrupt, so I think a lot of companies are trying to find proxy ways of valuing themselves.
What do you guys have a brokerage account?
Several.
Do you use Schwab?
No.
I can't figure out a way how to like straight from paycheck into like let's just pretend $100 into an ETF. I can't figure it out. It's like don't talk to me. Just put $100 into this and do it till I tell you to stop. And I can't.
Why?
figure
Why?
out
I
the-
wouldn't do it from a paycheck. I would just do an automatic, like from your bank account.
Or do like a
that's
transfer
what
from
it
your
means.
bank
The-
to your
the-
investment
the
account
check
and then
goes
an
into
automatic
the Schwab
reinvestment.
account, and then the Schwab account would use it.
You can't figure out how to do it like direct
Two
pull
steps.
from your bank account.
I
Is
mean,
what you're saying? Like a transfer from your bank account to your Schwab account on a recurring.
I guess
basis.
I can't figure out the $200 from any of the accounts on my Schwab into an ETF weekly or bi-weekly.
Recurring buys of a
I can't
product.
recurring buy. I don't
Yeah.
know if they even allow it, like partial buys, which is a problem. If they do not allow partial buys, I might have to.
I
Think
disagree. I think partial buys are a scam. Total
Oh
scam.
boy,
Why?
tell me more.
If
Why
you
should
have a
why
part-
should a 2-year-old kid that makes a little bit of lemonade stand money not be able to buy a share of Nvidia
tough.
or an eighth of a share?
Tough. I think the system that we have now is when you buy an eighth of a share, you don't actually own an eighth of a share. You own the rights to an eighth of a share. Somebody else actually owns that share. Somebody else is voting with that share as to what the company is doing, has control over the company, your future in the stock. You only have the rights to its value. Like if you don't own your stocks in your name, they're owned by the depository trust clearinghouse, and you don't actually have rights to them. And I think that having partial shares is a big problem as far as governance over the companies that rule our capitalist system, rule our lives. We live in a capitalist system. We should have control over the companies and the country. That's an
Anyway,
interesting concept, though.
You
Yeah.
gotta get $200 into a Bitcoin ETF. Well, even like, maybe is that Bitcoin's problem as well? Why don't they just make it way easier to buy? Like, why don't
There
I
is a
go to, like,
Bitcoin
Robinhood
ETF now.
and
That's-
like, buy Bitcoin?
So
Bitcoin
that,
ETF exists.
for people who don't want to have to buy an actual Bitcoin, you need to have an address. You need to open up a cryptocurrency wallet that's compatible with the blockchain technology that's used for Bitcoin. You have to then have a wallet address, which is a hash 256 string of random characters that's super private. It's basically your bank account key. If anybody finds that out, they take all of your money. So now you as an individual suddenly need to keep this super long random password, and that then needs to be stored on a wallet that you would either have as a physical device that you have to purchase, go out of your way to purchase, and have your own way of accessing it. Like a big call of Bitcoin is be your own bank. That's because you have something that looks like this hard drive, but it's your wallet. Your Bitcoin is literally stored on that wallet. Without the wallet, you can't access the Bitcoin. So you don't need banks. That's the whole idea behind Bitcoin originally, was like saying goodbye to banks. That was Satoshi Nakamoto's big white paper was, here is an alternative to the system that we have today with banks, with trust-based systems. This is a trustless system. I don't have to trust you because I've got it right here. I know I've got it right here. That's the value that Bitcoin offers beyond just a store of value like gold, beyond just a Walmart chain thing. It's the technology that secures that data, that verifies that this Bitcoin is a legitimate Bitcoin and it's right here. Nobody else has this Bitcoin. That's what makes it valuable.
Can you buy partial Bitcoin off of like not an ETF, or do you have to get whole Bitcoins?
Yeah, they're called
Even
sats. Is
do
the smallest
Coinbase or-
denomination of a Bitcoin is like 0.000000001 Bitcoin.
Should have just played with this back in 2008. Actually,
I wonder if you look up, there's charts of the value of Bitcoin, mapping it against fiat currency, and even though it's volatile long term, like the logarithmic scale of the value of Bitcoin is tracking exactly what you would expect based off of the supply of Bitcoin. Because every 4 years, it's called the halvening, HALVE, halvening, where the amount of Bitcoin that's mined, you might have heard this term where computers have to solve problems to create Bitcoin, is cut in half. Every time you solve that problem, last year you made 1 Bitcoin every time you solved it. Now you earn half a Bitcoin. Next year you earn 0.25, or in 4 years you earn 0.25 Bitcoin. 4 years later you earn 0.125 Bitcoin, and it keeps getting smaller and smaller until you get to 21 million Bitcoin. So that's why it's like a decreasing supply of Bitcoin that are even being created, being added to the supply for all this effort. So it's very fascinating.
When were you jailbreaking iPhones, Sam? That would have been the right time to also try to get a Bitcoin.
I downloaded a Bitcoin mining program to my dad's laptop, and through that process, all kinds of viruses. So uninstalled everything, stopped my process. I wrote in 8th grade, I think I wrote a paper about Bitcoin, and I never was able to mine a single Bitcoin or invest in one. And then I studied it in Copenhagen in 2017. I worked for a blockchain company that was studying this. In 2017, Bitcoin was like $2,100. Tried to open an account then to buy Bitcoin. It's difficult today, 7 years later, to buy Bitcoin, one of its biggest drawbacks. Very difficult back then. And I was in a foreign country, so they flagged me as like this isn't actually Sam. This guy's in Denmark. He doesn't live there. So you can't open an account. So tough luck. So I wasn't able to. I wasn't able to buy any then. Never did. Yeah. I mean, everybody's got that story, I feel like, because it's so exponential. But my point is, if you look at that logarithmic graph, and maybe part of the reason why companies like MicroStrategy exist is maybe it's not early. Maybe it's not too late. Maybe it's still early, and it's still something worth looking at. And there's maybe something that we should talk about as part of the broader picture.
I think they would definitely argue that it's still early. I mean, we could be sitting here in a year and it could be $1 million a Bitcoin.
But I still don't put my money into it. Like, I have maybe $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, and I'm like, I don't know. It kind of it's down to like 97 or something today. Like,
Oh boy. Well, anything else? We're still alive.
I don't think so. This one was kind of crazy because didn't realize we were live. I also felt like I was unprepared a little bit. Wasn't able to prep for this one. I was up at the lake this weekend. I had a pretty good 2 weeks off. Very dramatic up and down, but I'll save that for off live discussion.
Let me do our close. Let me do our
Yeah.
so I can get it in the recording.
Thanks everybody in the chat, by the way.
Oh
Fun
yeah,
chatting
thanks for
with you.
listening. All right, that'll do it for episode number 10. It was a fun one. We gave you pretty much, I think, every bit of information that we have on two very important topics of nuclear bombs and of the declining birth rate. We likely missed a lot of important facts on both because we are not experts on either. So
Email
if you have
us if we did.
any information, please email us. If you know anything about nukes or about adult diapers, please email us symposium574@gmail.com. We want to hear from you. We hope that you enjoyed our little reflection on the first 10 episodes. We are all looking forward to the next 10. So with that, we will see you next time in probably 2 weeks or so for episode number 11. Maybe it'll be live, maybe it won't. Stay tuned to our social medias. You'll see it on there if we're going to be live. Go like, subscribe, hit the notification bell,
Unless we do it by accident again.
and we might do it by accident. So that's why you have to be notified. Hit
And
the notification bell. You'll see that we're live.
And for your homework before our next live session, symposium574@gmail.com. Open up your email right now as you're watching. We want 3 things that you disagreed with, or 3 things that you know that we didn't touch on. We want to know. We're trying to learn just as much as you are. If you know anything about these topics, open up that email, hit send. We're curious.
And I'll
about it.
make a promise. Whoever sends the best one of those, they're getting a link. They're coming on. Guest number 1 ever
Yes.
for Symposium.
Wow.
Bringing on
Wow.
a guest. Justin, clip this. Put it out
Yes.
there. Let's get some crazy
go.
person on here
Let's go.
to just really go at it.
And I am not a B2 self-bomber pilot. Just want to make that very clear if you missed it in the beginning part of the episode.
Also, I am not a criminal, and I'm not trying to be a criminal. Everything in this podcast is entertainment purposes only. Should not be taken seriously. Follow your own legal counsel's advice and your own investment strategies that are right for you.